Strait of Hormuz being closed. We know that many tankers would pass through the straits every day, and I think in the last couple of days, only one has been allowed to pass through. The prices are rising inside of the United States and other countries, especially the gas prices. So,
and Iran is destroying the fifth U.S. fleet in Bahrain, which also from that region, from the 6.5 million square kilometers in that region, some 90% of the oil is passing. So then that in itself, this is major. And I think perhaps the IRGC, because I do believe that the U.S. regime is going to try to censor the names and information on a lot of soldiers who are fallen, maybe not allow for funeral processions, maybe try to basically distract the people from how many of their sons are being killed for the interests of this military-industrial complex. And so perhaps something that the IRGC can do is to send the information on the soldiers that were killed, trying to protect the interest of the empire, and potentially because they couldn't afford their college tuition, or they had other financial difficulties. And so that would be something important to do to educate the Americans about the cost they're paying for a war that is not their war. This war is not in the interest of Americans. In fact, Iran was ready to cooperate with America in various ways. The rich lands of Iran, the U.S. had the opportunity to invest in Iran, and Americans should know about that. They should know that how their officials, instead of taking advantage of a rich country like Iran, be willing to do business with them, they chose to go against it all. And even under Trump, who everybody's talking about how he's a businessman, and
well, he's a businessman for himself and for the billionaire class, but American people must understand, not for themselves. And I definitely think the American people are definitely increasing in their understanding of that reality. But at the same time, Mariam, I do believe in the middle of this that Iran has shown the world that there is a different alternative, that the Iranian nation, yes, is paying a price, but standing very proud and fighting against this evil that has obviously been seen, especially with the Epstein files. If people hadn't seen it before, of course, they should have seen it with the situation in Gaza, but especially with the revelation of the files and this pedophilia class of sick individuals, regimes that are leading in Iran has been and I think also that Iran is setting an example for our neighbors, for the Arab regimes, for the people of this region, especially the Muslims, that you should not bow down. You should not bow down. The more that you bow down, the more that you will be kicked. And Iran is saying it is standing its ground, it is standing firm, and yes, we're paying a price, but are willing to pay the price to keep our dignity and independence. And with that, I think it's really, really important that we go back to so many of the words of the leader of the revolution, the martyr of the revolution, who continually talked to the people and talked to them about their potential and never giving in to oppression. And I think that the people definitely right now in Iran are following his words, standing strong, not only the military, but also the people that are taking to the streets day and night to stand up for what is right. Thank you, Mariam Azzedeh, for being with us. We're going to cross over now to Beirut.
We're still with you on this live coverage. Of course, we are covering two fronts, it seems. We have the U.S.-Israeli aggression against the Islamic Republic of Iran, as well as the Israeli aggression on Lebanon. And just less than a minute ago, we heard loud sounds of explosions heard from the southern suburbs of Beirut. The Israelis have issued at least 3 warnings since this morning in the southern suburbs of Beirut, and also in the southern suburbs of Beirut, and also last night there were not only warnings and direct shelling on the southern suburbs of Beirut, but also at least 2 or 3 strikes that were hit without any prior warning. We had an attack in the town of Saida, in the city of Saida actually, and then we also had 2 different areas that are between Beirut and Sidon that were directly targeted. The Lebanese Ministry of Health has declared at least 6 people have been martyred as a result, in addition to scores of others injured. Of course, we also have direct attacks against the civilian population in the Islamic Republic of Iran. And so the same policy, the U.S.-Israeli policy of targeting civilians has not stopped. But at the same time, the retaliation has not appeased at all. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has declared shelling the 17th round of rockets towards the Israeli regime, as well as U.S. bases and U.S. interests in the region. Of course, there's a lot of developments that are significant, especially with the fact that Hezbollah seems to be entering the confrontation gradually. And so this is definitely, by all means, a historic face-off when you're talking about the peak or the crux of the whole conflict when it comes to the Israeli Arab, the Israeli Islamic, the Israeli humane conflict. And so these are a lot of issues that we want to discuss, of course, here today with my guest. I'm joined by Jamal Ghosn. Thank you very much for being with us. He is editor at Al Akhbar Daily here in Beirut. I want to welcome you with us on this round. First of all, let me get your take just as a Lebanese citizen. Were you surprised at the fact that the resistance chose this timing to begin its retaliation?
Not totally surprised, no. I think it makes total sense, timing, because I mean, the resistance have always announced that they would respond to the continuous aggression over the last 15 months since the alleged ceasefire. And there was a ceasefire agreement that was immediately broken by the Israelis and continuously broken by the Israelis, where they killed hundreds of Lebanese people over the time, where they took they occupied ground in South Lebanon. They expanded their occupation. They were able to do during this alleged ceasefire get more gains than they did during the war. So the 66-day war, especially on the ground, where they would just mobilize whenever they want and without any resistance, because there was restraint practiced by the resistance that might have been misinterpreted by some as defeat or as a lack of ability to fight back or to resist. And but I mean, obviously there was a time where there was going to be a response, and with the aggression, the Israeli-American aggression on Iran, that provided a very logical time to start the response for many reasons. We can go through them right now, but
yeah, we can go into detail on that. Maybe I should rephrase my question. Maybe I should ask you whether you were surprised if the Lebanese government actually took that decision to consider that all resistance activity as illegal, although this is stipulated in the Lebanese constitution, and especially after the Taif Accord.
Nothing from this cabinet surprised me, really. I mean, obviously it came as a result of the last war, and the president and prime minister were named. They're not popularly elected figures. They were appointed by basically foreign powers, which twisted the arms of parliamentarians to name. I mean, not just twisted the arms. Some people did it voluntarily because they want to appease the U.S. and other regional powers like Saudi Arabia, who wanted these men in these positions at the time. So these are, I mean, if Nawaf Salam runs for office, he wouldn't win. His building he represents anyone in Lebanon. He represents the interests of the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, and he's practicing that. He's actually true to form in that sense. There is a bit of surprised by the position of some ministers within the government. There was a little opposition to the decision, but again, this cabinet is a U.S.-run cabinet. It's a U.S. embassy. The ambassador in Lebanon, Johnson before, and now Michel Issa, he is running this cabinet. Make no mistake about it. So when the first attack happened, or first response by Hezbollah happened on at 3 in the morning or something like that. At 3:30, Nawaf Salam was issuing a statement. I'm sure he got a call from the embassy telling him to wake up and make a statement, because for a year he never bothered to condemn attacks, continuous and daily attacks against Lebanon, the country which he supposedly runs.
Yeah, well, in addition to the fact that you're talking about over a year and a half of daily aggressions against the Lebanese people, the killing of civilians, including children, the destruction of infrastructure, the fact that no one from especially the border towns are allowed to go back, rebuild, and go back with Iran, maybe ask for a ceasefire, go replenish, get refurbished, repair themselves, and then come towards Lebanon where they are at ease, where they're able to take on Lebanon on its own. So tell me about that. Did you think that now this was specifically the time that Hezbollah should actually retaliate, when they have perhaps the backing of Iran, when Iran is actually undermining the defenses of the Israelis?
Yeah, that's one angle to look at. I mean, obviously the timing, this is what makes timing very logical. It's they know that the Israelis are preparing for an attack, a massive attack. They are amassing soldiers on the border. They haven't stopped their war on Lebanon. Like I mentioned, there are over 400 people killed in the last year during the ceasefire. So the war never stopped, but they were gonna carry out another massive attack. What would have happened is, no matter what happens in Iran, they were going to attack Lebanon. Whether they succeed in defeating Iran and causing chaos and disruption in a government and maybe causing internal strife or whatever they are hoping to do in Iran, if they achieve that, and it doesn't look likely at this point, but if they do, then they definitely will go carry out an attack to finish off the resistance in Lebanon. And if they don't succeed in Iran, then they would have to save face somehow. Then they would have definitely
so in both scenarios
they would have attacked Lebanon. Yes, taking advantage of this timing for the Lebanese resistance to start its response to the continuous Israeli aggression makes complete sense.
Now, if we look at the endeavor of the resistance and how it has dealt with things, it began with a small round of rockets that probably did not even cause much damage, but they said that some targets hit a military base of the Israeli regime. But we see that there is a gradual entering of this battlefield, and what was most surprising was yesterday the fact that they were shooting Merkava tanks at a close range. I mean, all those past years, the fact that, the past year and a half, and the fact that they said that the south of Litani has been freed from any armed presence. What does that tell you, that you have resistance fighters that went back to the border town of Mutulli, maybe launching it from Khiyam towards Mutulli, destroying those Merkava tanks, targeting the military bases in the occupied Lebanese territories, in the Kfar Shuba, and so on? What does that tell you?
I mean, they never left. They didn't go back to these areas. These are the people that live in these towns. That
exactly.
They are that's their land. That's their town. They're defending their towns. There was a lie that was propagated on television and in the media about the disarmament south of the Litani and how the Lebanese army is trying to appease the Americans and the Israelis by emptying some depots, weapon depots south of the Litani and whatnot, and there were we saw some footage of people posing with some decommissioned weapons. But then at the end of the day, people will resist occupation. People will resist. It's a universal right. It's an acknowledged right. The Lebanese cabinet cannot stop it. The Israelis cannot stop it. The Americans cannot stop it. This is a right of natives to resist occupation. So, yeah, they never left. Of course, I'm not surprised at all that there was close-range firing at the Merkavas. This was totally expected. I never expected that the resistance would not resume, especially with the occupation. Doesn't come as a surprise at all. It comes as a surprise to the people who believe the narrative that the Israelis have finished off the resistance and that there was no more resistance. And if you really believe that there was no more resistance, then yes, that might come to a surprise. But no, I mean, I know if we go back to the end of the 66-day war, the start of the alleged ceasefire, that was the day before was one of the heaviest days as in terms of rockets fired from Lebanon into the occupied territories. So when the ceasefire came into effect, it was back then it was the U.S. envoy Amos Hochstein that came rushing to Beirut to force this ceasefire because Israel was calling for it, because they were under fire. They had carried out 66 days of war, and the resistance still was able to fire more rockets than it did at the beginning of the war. So that was a sign that while the resistance last year and during the 66-day war took a major hit over the first few weeks, it was able to recover and regain the initiative, and that's when the U.S. envoy rushed in a ceasefire that was never respected by the Israelis. But so we know that at the end of the last war, the resistance was still at full force. Not at full force, but at least able to hurt the Israeli entity and to reach Tel Aviv and with heavy barrages of rockets. These didn't go anywhere. These rockets didn't go anywhere. If anything, they were replenished over the last 15 months. I mean, some people chose to believe that this wasn't the case, and yes, that would surprise them. But we know how the war ended, and we know that the resistance was not defeated, and we know that they still had the ability to fight, and to fight hard and to hurt the Israelis. So, of course, if you look at where we started this war, we're starting basically, the Israelis are starting it from where they ended last time, where they have no military targets. We've seen how they've targeted the credit union of Al-Qard al-Hassan, 18 branches throughout the country, which are basically locations with store signs on that everybody knows that they're commercial entities. Then they moved on to hitting the headquarters of Al-Manar, which is also a known building, the television station, and then the radio station, which is also a known building. And then yesterday they moved on to hitting Al-Jama'a al-Islamiyya, which is they hit their headquarters, which they're not involved in the war. They just want to punish them for, I don't know,
because they were involved during the support front for Gaza.
Exactly.
This is why they were coordinating with
Exactly. So they're punishing them now for something, and not really. They haven't hit any military. They're not punishing them militarily. They just hit their headquarters, and then they assassinated someone yesterday, I believe, also from the Jama'a al-Islamiyya. So this shows, at least for now, that the database that the Israelis had last year, and it was very extensive, and it was very damaging to the resistance, and they used it up basically in the first 2 weeks of the attack, which is what they tend to do, is they tend to hit hard first, and they did it in Iran in summer, and they did it again this time, and then they run out of targets to hit, so they start hitting civilian targets or anything that they can just fire at, because they run out of military targets to hit. Meanwhile, the resistance is still fighting back. We saw cornets at close range in border towns. We saw rocket barrages, and we'll see a lot more as we move on.
There is something that's, in the history of the confrontation with the Israeli regime, we noticed that they always achieve more during the time of ceasefire or truce than they do during the time of war. They do, of course, achieve much with the bombardment and the killing and so on, but not the major objectives. Like it was after the ceasefire that they actually took hold of at least 5, even more strategic peaks in South Lebanon. They refused, of course, any return for the people, the inhabitants, and they were saying that throughout the past year and a half, they were actually targeting infrastructure for the resistance, and they targeted or they undermined also the stockpile or the rockets. Let's say this is accurate. For Hezbollah as a resistance, it's a grassroots movement. You mentioned that they are the people of the land. Do you feel that it is their wish or their will of the resistance to have the Israelis lured inside Lebanon, and that is where they face-to-face confrontation and close quarter combat?
I can tell you that the wish or the will of the resistance is to end the existence of this entity, this colonial entity that has been implanted in this region, and the region will never see peace while it still exists. So the liberation of Palestine is the ultimate goal. Even today, I mean, we know last year there were all the martyrs were a entity that has been implanted in this region, and the region will never see peace while it still exists. So the liberation of Palestine is the ultimate goal. Even today, I mean, we know last year there were all the martyrs were basically called, they were marched to liberate the land and the skies, because as you mentioned in the ceasefire, it's true that they took some points on land, but the skies were basically a property of the Israeli military, where they were killing people every day. So the only way to do that is to end that threat to I mean, you called it, I would call it threat to humanity, especially with, but definitely.
Exactly.
Still, I mean, it's going on now in a soft genocide term, where they're still controlling the population and moving them and trying to
and the West Bank and Al-Quds.
Exactly. So this is not, we're not talking about history long in the past. We're talking about something that just happened, that everybody witnessed. We know what we're dealing with. We know what this genocidal regime is capable of, and what they were willing to do just to make the people basically submit to their will. So the only way to liberate the region, and it's not to liberate or to just the border villages where the Israelis advanced a bit during the ceasefire. But going back that's basically helping them instead of, I mean, we haven't seen a single word from this cabinet, from Nawaf Salam and from Joseph Aoun in any word to exert any pressure to stop the violations of the ceasefire, to return the prisoners of war. We have those also that people seem to forget that the Israelis are holding.
Many of them were kidnapped after the ceasefire.
Exactly. So there were, so there are Lebanese citizens held by the Israelis that need to be liberated also. That the Israelis are holding.
Many of them were kidnapped after the ceasefire.
Exactly. So there were, so there are Lebanese citizens held by the Israelis that need to be liberated also, and ultimately, let's see. I mean, obviously, you said that this is, I mean, this confrontation with, especially with the U.S. involved and Iran involved. I mean, some people think it's over. That's it. We're entering the Israeli era of hegemony over the region. I don't think so, but this war will be very telling in which way the region is going.
Oh yeah, of course it would be interesting, of course, to follow that up and see what happens. But when you mentioned the government minister, and of course the government is the executive minister, and of course the government is the executive power, it is the authority, and it has the, dictates to the Lebanese army. But dictates to the Lebanese army. But isn't there? I mean, I don't know if you can tell us about this. Is there in the country to lure this government enter and occupy Lebanese territory, as we heard and understood from the meeting of the cabinet, that they asked the Lebanese army to withdraw in order to allow and let the Israelis do what they will, and to consider a resistance, a people's resistance against an aggressor, an invader, as unlawful. Is there some sort of an authority, constitutional authority that can?
I mean, we shall see after. In a few weeks, who is legal, who is the real authority, and who is not. I mean, I will not comment about how little power the executive authorities lead in the country. Yes, they ordered its weapons against an invading army. This is treason in every law of the land. This is absolutely treason. To call on the national army to withdraw and lay down arms when there's an invading power taking over your territory, that is treason. But let the law speak for itself. I mean, our Prime Minister is an expert at law. He should know that.
Yeah, this is what is striking. I mean, someone who's someone who's coming from a judicial background. You might think that he would understand that. Now, to go back to the media, the Iranian media is saying that 5 people have been killed as a result of American Zionist attacks that targeted the area of Isfahan very strictly with anyone who cooperates with the enemy. The Israeli regime is talking about the fact that an F-35 has downed a Yak-130, an Iranian plane over Iran. I mean, can they boast about that? I mean, Iranian plane. I mean, and we also have that the Iranian foreign minister, it's important, of course, to mention that every day, of course, he has significant statements. He has said that what happened was the fact that they have blown up the table of negotiations with all their hatred, and so it's not clear whether this means that they will never be going back to the negotiations no matter what happened. Mr. Araghchi is saying that Trump has actually betrayed all diplomacy and even the American people who elected him. And he said that when we deal with the nuclear talks, it was for him it was a trade, it was a deal, and of course they could not expect to have achieved anything that is unrealistic. This is based, of course, on the statements for the foreign minister, and there is also the assistant of Sayyid Ali Khamenei, who said that there is no intention to go back to any negotiations with the United States, and we can go on with this war for as long as it needs. We also have a significant statement from the Prime Minister of Spain saying that we refuse the war against Iran, and but also at the same time he is saying that we are in solidarity with the countries of the Persian Gulf. And so there's, of course, it seems that there's a lot of elements that have entered this war. It is no longer just limited to an Israeli strike on Iran, Iran targeting the Israeli regime. We noticed how the Iranians, although they had also gradually told the Americans and even the countries of the region, stressing that if you assist the Americans, if any attack against Iran is launched from your part, from your territory, then that gives Iran the legitimate right to target those areas. And we noticed a myriad of type of targets. I mean, they targeted not only the U.S. military bases. We're talking about intelligence headquarters, that some of them were perhaps secretive, like in Dubai, for example. The fact that they are pounding and hammering the Kurdistan also areas, and the fact that we do know the Mossad is quite active in that area. How do you look at the situation in general before we go into the details?
Okay, I'll start with the first point you're talking about negotiations. I don't know if, forget about Iran. I don't know if anyone would be dumb enough to sit at a table and negotiate with the U.S.
We'll be watching for signs an exodus is coming.
After what happened.
For now, getting out is unlikely. Nearly all flights are still grounded. Dubai Airport is the biggest international transit hub in the world, and thousands of travellers are stranded. James Gaskin, passing through on his way back to the UK, is now settling into a Dubai hotel room. He doesn't know how long he'll be here.
The longer it goes on, the more edgy people are getting. There's a lot more people in reception, asking questions, trying to find out what the latest is. It just feels as if people are now, right, this is real, and I don't really like it.
Rory Challens, Al Jazeera.
The Russian pipeline.
Now, for the second day, senior Trump officials have briefed politicians in Congress behind closed doors, justifying the attack on Iran, but not everyone's convinced. The Democrats want to vote on a war powers resolution. They accuse the president of breaching the Constitution by authorizing attacks on Iran without congressional approval.
Countries or Europe as a whole.
Let me explain to you guys this in simple English, okay? Iran is run by lunatics, religious fanatic lunatics. They have an ambition to have nuclear weapons. They intend to develop those nuclear weapons behind a program of missiles and drones and terrorism that the world will not be able to touch them for fear of those things. And this is the weakest they've ever been. Now is the time to go after them. The president made the decision to go after them, take away their missiles, take away their navy, take away their drones, take away their ability to make those things so that they can never have a nuclear weapon. That's why the president made this decision. It was the right decision, and the world will be a safer place when these radical clerics no longer have access to these weapons.
They told us in there that this is an open-ended operation that hasn't even really started in earnest yet. There will be more Americans killed. They refuse to take off the table the insertion of ground troops. This is going to make the operation in Libya look like child's play. There is no question this is war. They have contempt for the American people. They have contempt for the American people because they think that they can carry out the biggest war in the Middle East since Iraq and Afghanistan without a single vote, without a single discussion.
Rosalind Jones in Washington, D.C. Ros, clearly the Democrats aren't buying this imminent threat argument put forward by the Trump administration. But does Congress really have any power, any sway whatsoever to stop the likelihood of a third wave of attacks?
That the required investment
in the congressional Democrats who criticized the Trump administration's decision to launch this military attack on Iran could get enough Republicans to join them, they could pass a war powers resolution that would put a limit on how much longer this military operation could continue. But the chances of the Democrats getting enough Republicans in order to cover 2/3 of the congressional membership, the chances of their reaching that numerical threshold are slim to none. And so at least this week it doesn't look as if congressional Democrats will be able to put the brakes on this military operation. Now, that does not mean that there won't be other opportunities to try to rein in the Trump administration. Already some Republicans who in general support this military operation are saying that if it runs much longer longer than 3 to 4 weeks. If it starts costing many more millions or tens of millions of dollars, if many more U.S. forces are then deployed or face the chance of being deployed to the region in order to help continue this military operation, then these Republicans say that there would need to be some sort of congressional authorization for the Trump administration to continue this essentially war of choice. But we're not at that point yet.
Talking about war of choice, how is the Trump administration providing their legal rationale behind this being a defensive war rather than a war of choice? What have they settled on?
Beginning of the war, since first day, since the assassination
well, it seems after putting out lots of different ideas that Israel was going to launch first and that they would necessarily need to come in behind to protect Israel from retaliation, to the idea that Iran was planning some sort of existential attack on the U.S. or U.S. interests, to the notion that this is the only way to convince Iran that it needed to abandon its ambitions for a nuclear weapons program. It comes down to the fact that while the U.S. had been negotiating with Iran in recent weeks on curbs on its nuclear ambitions, now the U.S. is saying that in the middle of those discussions, Iran was making secret threats, and that's why the U.S. decided to basically break off those talks and launch this military operation on February 28th. Here's more of what the U.S. President Donald Trump had to say on Tuesday.
We were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. We have great negotiators, great people that do this very successfully, and have done it all their lives very successfully. And based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first. And I didn't want that to happen. So if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand.
Now, already there are questions about how much this military operation is costing the U.S. government. There are now reports suggesting that the White House may be putting together a $50 billion supplemental program to present to Congress in order to pay for additional missiles, ammunition, and other weapons in order to conduct this war against Iran. But there's not even an initial estimate that the administration has put forward about how much all of this is costing.
But they do not want Israel running the U.S.
These are the 7:30 GMT. You're with Al Jazeera and its extensive coverage of the conflict between the U.S., Israel, and Iran. I'm Nick Barker.
Hypocrites that they would do the same thing after Biden.
Israel's carried out a new wave of attacks across Lebanon in its rapidly escalating conflict with Hezbollah. More airstrikes have hit Beirut on Wednesday morning. In Iran, the death toll is mounting fast. Since Saturday, U.S. and Israeli attacks have killed more than 780 people. A number of government buildings have been destroyed. Homes, hospitals, and a UNESCO heritage site have all been damaged in the widespread attacks. Iran has launched multiple strikes on Israel, including in the Tel Aviv area. Iranian missile attacks have also been reported in central Israel. At least 11 people have been killed across the country since the conflict began.
The voice of reason in the U.S. right now.
Iran's also continuing its attacks across the Gulf region. In Dubai, a drone strike hit the U.S. consulate, sparking a fire there. In Qatar, a missile struck Al Udeid Air Base. That's the Pentagon's largest presence in the region. In Washington, the Trump administration's under fire from the Democrats. They say his justifications for attacking Iran are falling short. White House officials briefed Congress in a bid to get politicians on board, though it's done little to convince senators across the aisle that a war on Iran is necessary. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps says it's launched a series of drone attacks targeting a U.S. military base in Iraq. The group says its ground forces targeted a base in Erbil, that's in northern Iraq. The IRGC says it was part of what it described as 3 simultaneous operations, including strikes on 2 U.S. military bases in Kuwait. Ahmed Abdul Wahed joins us live from Baghdad. Bring us up to speed, Mahmoud. Drone strikes on U.S. installations and targets, a pattern of what we've been seeing across the entire region. What impact do you understand that may have had?
representatives are on the payroll. A lot of the the decision makers, the think tanks.
Well, it definitely resonating inside Iraq. I mean, the conflict, regional conflict, as you know, that there is what is so-called the Islamic resistance. So that's a pro-Iranian umbrella group that includes several armored groups inside Iraq. They have claimed the responsibility of targeting several locations, U.S. locations inside Iraq. The latest was the victory base that's annexed to the Baghdad International Airport, but the drone was shot down. That comes only hours after another drone was sent by the Islamic resistance that was intercepted in front of Baghdad International Airport. As you know, that victory base includes also a logistical support, U.S. logistical support and diplomatic center there. Security sources here in Iraq say they have also captured 9 rockets and a launch pad in Abu Ghraib area in the vicinity of Baghdad. They were prepared to attack several locations in Baghdad. In Jurf al-Sakhr, south of Baghdad, that's north of Babylon province, which is home to several Iran-aligned armed groups, including the Popular Mobilization units. The area witnessed another airstrike. As you know, that it has been witnessing several U.S. and Israeli airstrikes over the past few days since the military campaign started. Now, this is the situation in central Iraq. In northern Iraq, in Slaymaniyah last night, a building that was formerly used by the UN was hit. Officials in the Kurdish region say they're not sure whether it was hit by a drone or a missile, but officials also in the Kurdish region say that Iranians suspect that that building was home to U.S. military individuals. On the other hand, you know, the Iranian opposition parties that are based in the Kurdish region in northern Iraq, their locations have been hit several times also by Iranian drones. As you know, that Iran accuses the United States and the Israeli Mossad of training and equipping Iranian opposition groups and parties in northern Iraq. You know, the last thing, Niamh, if you allow me, you have different positions here. Political positions. The politicians want Iraq not to be a ground to settle scores, not to be a launchpad to attack any neighboring country. But at the same time, the armed groups, the Iran-aligned armed groups, vow to retaliate and attack all U.S. and Israeli interests in the region.
It happened historically. Many thanks for that update. Mahmoud Abdul-Wahed in Baghdad for us. Well, US President Donald Trump hasn't specified who he thinks might be the next leader of Iran, despite all this talk about regime change. He drew parallels with the Operation Venezuela, which ended with the capture of Nicolas Maduro. Trump said, quote, "We kept the government totally intact."
They wouldn't last 2 weeks without his...
well, most of the people we had in mind are dead. So now it looks we had some in mind from that group that is dead.
Doesn't last 2 weeks.
And now we have another group. They may be dead also, based on reports. So I guess you have a third wave coming in. Pretty soon we're not going to know anybody.
Like 4 days left of,
but we have, I mean, Venezuela was so incredible because we did the attack and we kept government totally intact. And we have Delcy, it's been very good. We have the whole chain of command, and they've been, you know, look, the relationship's been great. We've taken out 100 million barrels of oil already. And a big part of that goes to them, and a big part goes to us. And it's been great.
Well, joining me in the studio is Russell Soto, who's reported extensively from Iran. We also have Abbas Aslani in Tehran, a senior research fellow at the Center for Middle East Strategic Studies. Good to have you both here. Starting with you, Abbas, because I think we need to set the scene over who really calls the shots in Tehran at the moment. Who has the final say on ongoing operations? The Interim Leadership Council is now in place, but the actual decision-making power is concentrated within the council members. members, including President Pezeshkian. But what role do you think the IRGC has? They seem to be the most prominent and vocal voices at the moment. Are they essentially the de facto authority in charge?
That were invested as protection money.
Well, normally at the time of a military conflict, the role of those in the military field or the security increases, and this is something natural. But we have been seeing that the country has lost not only a political leader, but also high-ranking commanders. The number of them have been quite significant, but number of them also remain. They are part of a bigger, let's say, infrastructure that has been built during many years, and for example, the commander of the IRGC Air Force, who are responsible for targeting different American or Israeli assets, is yet alive, and he is in the commanding position. We have been seeing that due to the pre-planned, let's say, operational agenda. Those operations are taking place and are yet in place, and this will Iran can buy time through these operations to fill those vacuum, and there is a kind of, let's say, synchronization between the Interim Leadership Council, who now can intervene even in those issues related to security and military, but they are in close contact with the military sector, and also they are trying to somehow navigate through this challenging time in terms of the domestic developments, because the risk of provoking an unrest in the country is very high. The US and Israel, they want to somehow bring instability. They want to somehow mobilize some armed groups in the country to provoke people to come to the streets in order to bring a change to the
Abbas, on that point, turning to you, Rasul, about stirring up tensions within the country. We are hearing of some possible ground operations. This has been, in everybody's eyes so far, very much an aerial war by way of Iranian missiles being fired out and aerial bombardments of various Iranian targets. But what are you hearing?
Well, the IRGC announced that its ground forces, land forces, are now heavily involved in fighting, particularly alongside the Iran-Iraq border and also Kuwait-Iranian border. But here the focus was mainly Iran-Iraq border, and the reason for that is because there are Kurdish militants over there. So in recent days we have...
So to clarify, Kurdish military backed by American?
Some of them backed by American. Kurdish parties, they came together and they announced a joint statement of the cooperation. So some of them are Iranian origin, some of them are heavy
fighters with weapons.
As the USA is particularly now targeting Iran's air defense systems, radars and air forces and so on. So once the central government does not have a meaningful air force, and once the central government is weakened further, then the USA is going to destabilize Iran's border and encourage the insurgencies of the ethnic and religious minority groups, and particularly Kurds, and then Baluch, and then Arabs, and then potentially Azeris, and that will destabilize the country, and to a certain extent it could open the doors for a prolonged civil war. That's why now IRGC is intervening in the early stage to prevent such a scenario.
Right. Rasul, back to you. Thank you for that, Rasul. Back to you, Abbas. Rasul explained a situation whereby external powers may be seeking to fracture a nation that is a patchwork of different groups of ethnicities, the Kurds being a portion of that, Baluch, Arabs, Turkmen even as well. It is a large, large country. I guess the goal now for any kind of leadership that may emerge, any kind of replacement to the killed supreme leader, will have to essentially unify a country to try and resist any kind of perceived interference.
I don't think they have the choice. I mean, anybody who tries to...
it seems firstly, initially, as Rasul said, I think the other parties are trying to somehow use some armed groups from different in different parts of the country. They are trying to use border areas to bring those groups into the country. Maybe the United States anticipated a Venezuela-like, battle, a bit more difficult, and things seem not to be unfolding as they anticipated. So that's why we are also seeing, their air defense inventory is running out in the region. But in addition to that, we are seeing that the Iranian, let's say, leadership is trying to find and elect a new leader. There are difficulties, because of the ongoing conflict. Holding a session of the Assembly of Experts is difficult. They are using different methods, which is not in person, to elect a new leader. And also the risk of having a new leader or being targeted also is yet there. So I think they will try to somehow observe more security-related protocols in order to protect the new leader and run the country through this transitional period. And, two things are here important. One is to somehow inflict heavy costs on the U.S. and Israel and stop their aggression. And the second, which also could seem more important, is to make sure that the country will not become unstable. And controlling those, groups within the country, as Rasul said yesterday, the IRGC ground forces engaged through a number of operations. They want to make sure that if there is any attempt from the armed groups or those separatists coming to the country, they will stop them and not to allow them to bring chaos to the country. So this, difficult issues compounded and coupled together has created a sensitive moment for the country.
Okay, well, what you both have described to me, both Abbas Aslani and Rasul Zodda here in the studio, I'm afraid we have to move on, Rasul, but what you both clearly explained is that this is much more than an aerial war, that something else is developing on the ground by way of other groups trying to probe and test the authority of the Iranian leadership as it stands right now. Well, President Donald Trump announced the United States is at war with Iran on social media. That's also where his old views about what the thought of a war on Iran, what his thoughts on war on Iran are resurfacing. Social media is also revealing how members of Trump's national security team have changed their stance too. Here's Al Jazeera's Phil Lavelle. He's in Washington.
American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people.
That is how Americans find out that they are at war, or at least that's how it used to be. Remember, we're in the year 2026 now, and things are very different.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran.
That came on social media. It is a medium that President Trump loves. Across X and Truth Social, that's the platform that he owns, he reaches more than 120 million followers. It is the age of announcements by algorithm, policies on podcasts. But remember, the internet is forever. There is always a tweet, as some say. Case in point, the president's past posts, like this one, 2011. In order to get elected, Barack Obama will start a war with Iran. Remember, it's an election year here now, too, because the midterms are in November. And then there is this.
Our president will start a war with Iran because he has absolutely no ability to negotiate. He's weak and he's ineffective.
Vice President J.D. Vance is also a prolific poster and podcast guest, touching on this very issue before the election.
Our interest, I think, very much is in not going to war with Iran, right? It would be huge distraction of resources. It would be massively expensive to our country.
There he was in the Situation Room with Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard as those strikes began. She once ran to be leader of the Democrats, and also online you can see she sold T-shirts opposing any war with Iran as recently as 2020. Now posts are flying up, eager to catch the president's eyes and ears. Some from his own party, furiously trying to turn him away from all of us campaigned on no more foreign wars and regime change. Even the late influencer Charlie Kirk, nearly 6 months after he was murdered, Republicans are now reminding Trump of his views on regime change.
Okay, that sounds good, but that's pathologically insane. I'm sorry, it is.
But the president is also getting a huge amount of support online as well. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham calling Netanyahu and Trump the modern-day Roosevelt and Churchill. Senator Tom Cotton saying the president was right to act. Even demolition accomplished. For the best indication you could do worse than keeping an eye on social media. Phil Lavelle, Al Jazeera, Washington.
They were always introducing Mark Owen Jones, who's Associate Professor of Media Analytics at Northwestern University in Qatar. Mark, you are joining us from Amsterdam. You, like many, are unable to return at this current point. Good to have you down the line, though. The old maxim, isn't it, that the first casualty in war is truth, and I think we need to address some perhaps erroneous reporting by Channel 12 Israel suggesting that Qatar carried out retaliatory strikes inside Iran over the preceding 24 hours, citing unnamed Western sources. Why might it be in Israel's interest to draw Qatar, or at least give the impression Qatar was now fighting more than a defensive war?
Confrontation. Well, I think there's a number of reasons. I think that particular story that you mentioned is an attempt to draw the Gulf states into the conflict. And there's been a reason for this. It's to try and drive a wedge, I think, between Iran and Qatar in particular. Let's not forget that Qatar and Iran share this large gas field, and they have cooperation for that purpose. And I think for Israel, who've long been trying to essentially get the Gulf states to normalize, for them to have or grant the perception that Gulf states are now involved in the war on the side of Israel and the US would be a big diplomatic win for them, because it would represent a form of strategic normalization, essentially, where you have this illusion that the Gulf states are now getting involved in Iran. It would also signal to Iran potentially that there's going to be an increasing cost to their attacks, and that Iran are not just facing the kind of the arsenal of Israel and the US, but also the potential arsenals of Saudi, Qatar, and the UAE. So again, it's this narrative warfare designed to do a number of things: drive a wedge between the Gulf and Iran, and also trying to give this impression on a narrative level that the Gulf states are adding to this kind of military attack on Iran.
Qatar's foreign ministry spokesperson Majed al-Ansari quickly denied these reports that surfaced in the Israeli media, stating that Qatar has not joined the offensive campaign against Iran. He clarified that Qatar is focused on self-defense and deterring Iranian attacks. Al-Ansari noted that Doha received no advance warning from Tehran before the missiles were launched, and perhaps that led to the statement that attacks like these will pass. Will not pass, rather, without a response. Why is it so important for these clarifications to be made before these claims spiral?
I mean, advisors.
Well, because we're living in an information war now, and one of the problems is that there's a need for one on a domestic level to maintain a level of calm. There are so many competing information flows, and as you said, as was said in the package before this, we often have a situation where narratives are determined via social media. So if a narrative, for example, that Qatar was engaged in military operations against Iran was to go viral, it might even lead to public pressure or public statements that could have domestic or international consequences, right? These are fundamental security issues, right? If a Gulf state was perceived to be engaging in a war on behalf or aligned with Israel, this could also drive certain people to then see the Qatari state as an enemy, or any Gulf state as an enemy. So I think it's really important that these narratives, they keep a lid on these narratives, because there is every possibility that what is an international war could lead to domestic consequences, domestic violence, panic, and other things, and also change the calculus of other diplomatic entities who might perceive these. There's been plenty of stories where officials have reacted to stories that are false, right? And that can actually have an impact on diplomatic relations. So it's really important that this news is nipped in the bud, because we've seen probably hundreds, I think, of fake stories that go viral. Many AI-generated images, for example, showing attacks on the Gulf states. We see burning buildings, that videos of which are fake. Some are real, of course, but many of these are fake. So So the information climate is really precarious, and it's really important that people receive accurate information, not just the people on the ground, but also diplomats and politicians.
Yeah, in times of war, obviously, accuracy matters
a lot of intention
more than anything. Mark, many thanks for that. Mark Owen Jones.
Supposed to be said out loud, and very out loud.
Asian markets are feeling the shock from the growing conflict in the Gulf. South Korea's stock market suffered the biggest two-day drop since 2008. Hong Kong, Sydney and Singapore all fell more than 2%. Let's go to Jack Barton, who joins us from Seoul with more details on this. So the markets in Seoul closed earlier on in the day.
Falling more than 12%, and according to local media, it is now the biggest drop, not just since the global financial crisis, but since 9/11. It has been dubbed in the local media the terror of Wednesday, and really sending shockwaves there, because we have seen drops across Asia, and we have seen big drops in countries like South Korea, which are heavily dependent on oil and gas from the Middle East, and also they are big industrial nations, so they depend on shipping to bring goods in and to take goods out, which is why we've also seen big drops in car maker Hyundai, Samsung Electronics, a fall of around 10%. So it's not just energy firms and airline carriers also seeing big drops, and the government has put together a big emergency stabilization fund. They haven't used it, and the selling just keeps continues. So if this carries on for the next few days, the question here on everybody's mind is, when will the government intervene, to try and stop this great big hemorrhaging of the market? But the feeling is that as long as oil prices continue to rise, and as long as the shipping costs continue to rise as well, the market will continue to fall.
Many thanks for that, Jack Barton in Seoul.
Or to reach its target.
A growing number of Filipinos in the Middle East are seeking to leave the region as the conflict escalates. People from the Philippines form the backbone of the workforce in many of the countries, particularly in the Gulf region. The Philippine president says teams on the ground are preparing evacuation procedures. Millions of migrant workers from the rest of Asia are also in harm's way. Barnaby Lowe has the story from Manila.
The summer war, because
this international airport may not be a hub, but it is the gateway for millions of Filipinos who are the lifeblood of the global workforce and the Philippine economy. Their annual remittances account for nearly 10% of the country's GDP, and about a quarter of them are in the Middle East, now caught in the widening conflict there. One of the first expats to be injured by retaliatory strikes by Iran was a Filipino worker in Kuwait's international airport, and one of the first killed was a Filipina caregiver in Israel who was assisting her ward to a bomb shelter when a shrapnel hit her. Now her family has requested that her remains be brought back home, but officials here say that may not be possible for a while.
In due time, OFW Mary Ann will be home safely. But in the meantime, Admin PY and myself sent our teams already over to Pangasinan and for the family. And then our teams naman also in Tel Aviv are with hand-holding the husband through this difficult process.
In fact, no homecoming is expected at this airport anytime soon, at least from the Middle East. That much Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. admits, while also assuring the nearly 2.5 million Filipinos in the Middle East that there are teams on the ground already getting ready for eventual evacuation of those who've requested to be repatriated, and there is a growing number of them whenever that becomes possible.
Our assessment is that it would be too dangerous to charter flights. There are suggestions to evacuate by land, but that could also be risky, because we're talking about an active combat zone. People could be caught in crossfires, or cars could be bombed.
And it's not just Filipinos. Across the Middle East, there are more than 24 million migrant workers, many from South and Southeast Asia. And so, for instance, Pakistan, Thailand, and Indonesia have urged their citizens to shelter in place. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has directed all departments to assist Indian nationals. Vietnam and Nepal have suspended the deployment of workers, and here in the Philippines, a limited deployment ban remains in place. Barnaby Lowe, Al Jazeera, Manila.
Oh, it's coming up to 8 GMT. That's 11:30 a.m. in Tehran. You're watching Al Jazeera's extensive coverage of the conflict between the US, Israel and Iran. I'm Neve Barker. In Iran, there are reports of loud explosions in Tehran. Since Saturday, US and Israeli attacks have killed more than 780 people. A number of government buildings have been destroyed. Homes, hospitals and a UNESCO heritage site have all been damaged in widespread strikes. Tehran has launched multiple strikes on Israel, including in the Tel Aviv area. Iranian missile attacks have also been reported in central Israel. At least 11 people have been killed across the country since the conflict began. And Israel has carried out a new wave of attacks across Lebanon in its rapidly escalating conflict with Hezbollah. More airstrikes hit Beirut on Wednesday morning.
The government and for their armed forces. At that point, they were in Revolution Square, and the Israelis targeted.
And Iran is still carrying out attacks across the Gulf region. In Dubai, a drone strike hit the U.S. consulate, sparking a fire. In Qatar, a missile struck Al Udeid Air Base, which hosts the Pentagon's largest presence in the region. In Washington, the Trump administration's under fire from the Democrats. They say his justifications for attacking Iran are falling short. White House officials briefed Congress in a bid to get politicians on board. Those done little to convince senators across the aisle that a war in Iran is necessary.
Yesterday we had
well, we are live in Tehran, Beirut, Ramallah, Washington, D.C. and Doha. Let's head to Tehran first and speak to Towhid Assadi. Towhid, we are, to start with, hearing of loud explosions there in the Iranian capital. What are you seeing? What are you hearing?
Before I continue with reading that,
well, actually, a few minutes ago, on my right, in the northeastern part of Iranian capital Tehran, we heard a massive sound of explosion, and of course, that is sort of continuation of Israeli and American. These destructions is not just limited to the military facilities as well as the political centers, but also civilian infrastructures are being targeted, affected, including schools and hospitals. And yesterday we witnessed actually a funeral for more than 160 students which were killed, who were killed actually in a strike which targeted basically an elementary school in the southern Iran. And according to the latest reports, to give you some statistics from the Red Crescent, we know that more than 153 cities have been targeted. And of course, they're saying yesterday that more than 780 people have lost their lives as a result of these continued strikes. Seeing the continuation of these strikes, we can rest assured that the casualties can be even more than that, and with many more injured. Right now, the situation in the capital is sort of highlighted by a sense of frustration and fear pertaining to these continued escalation, continued strikes that Iranians are facing now on an hourly basis, and of course a sense of uncertainty when it comes to the future of the country. Politically speaking, right now the country is under control of a council composed of 3 people: Iranian president, Iranian head of judiciary, as well as a member of the Guardian Council, but all eyes are on a constitutional procedure which is going to pave the way for the appointment of a new supreme leader.
Towhid, let me just add to what you've been saying, because we've just received this important clarification. The Israeli military says it has begun a wave of broad-scale strikes in Tehran. Let me repeat, the Israeli military is saying it's begun a wave of broad-scale strikes in Tehran. Given this is a city that has already been hit by thousands of aerial munitions by both the Israelis and the Americans, what implications does this have on the remaining population there in Tehran, the people who haven't fled?
Between Israel and the
well,
US
first of all, for our viewers, we're talking about Tehran province, in which the capital has been located, and in the province, roughly 14 million people are living, so it's not easy and feasible to talk about any moving of the entire population of the province outside it, as some people have no place to go and there is no appropriate shelter for these people who are already living inside the city. We know that a considerable proportion of the Iranian capital have decided to left the city as the traffic and other things that we witness across the town is quite indicative of that, but still stakes are really high and people are feeling this risk of continuing the strike, seeing the statements that coming from the Israeli side. The government, on the other hand, is saying that it's doing its utmost to make sure that everything is on the right track, but the reality on the ground when it comes to normal life of ordinary citizens is far from that.
And Towhead, the mourning period for the killed Ayatollah, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is underway. At the same time, preparations to find Iran's next Supreme Leader are happening as well. This, as Israel claims to have hit the assembly of experts in Qom, specifically, we presume, to disrupt that process, to choose a new Supreme Leader. Talk us through the implications of that and how resilient that body is in making sure they do go ahead in finding a replacement.
It decides.
Well, speaking of the process, first and foremost, we know that the Assembly of Experts, or in Persian they call it Majlis Khulbegan, is responsible for actually appointing the new Supreme Leader of the country following the killing of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the former Supreme Leader of the country. And speaking of the process, they are saying that they're trying to do it as fast as possible, even though there is no deadline either announced or according to the Constitution. The Constitution says as soon as possible, and in the Iranian rhetoric we see the same thing. But still, we know that Israelis are talking about interrupting the process. And of course, we've got this recent report from the city of Qom, as you mentioned, in which they're saying that a building belonging to this body was targeted. The Iranian media outlets, on the other hand, are saying that at the time of attack, this old building of this political important body was empty and no session was being held on the occasion, on the time of those strikes. But still, they're saying that the process is underway with no further details out.
All right, let's come away from Tehran, where we're just hearing that the Israeli military says it's begun a wave of broad-scale strikes there, and focus on this process of picking a new Supreme Leader, because Israel's defense minister says whoever is selected will be a target. On Tuesday, an Israeli strike destroyed a building of the Assembly of Experts in the city of Qom. We've just been talking about that with Towhead. Just to clarify, that's the clerical body tasked with appointing the next Supreme Leader. Israel Katz, the Israeli defense minister, posted on X saying every leader appointed by the Iranian terror regime to continue and lead the plan to destroy Israel, to threaten the United States and the free world and the countries of the region, and to suppress the Iranian people will be an unequivocal target for elimination. It does not matter what his name is or the place where he hides. Nor is in Ramallah. Good to see you, Noz. Israel Katz saying whoever emerges will be immediately eliminated. It follows a pattern of geopolitical behavior, I think it's fair to say, coming from Israel in recent years, very much showing that Israel wants any future for Iran to be on its terms, on its timeline.
Realize that, or to know that which was very significant.
Absolutely, Niamh. And, you know, sometimes I think trying to update our viewers with all that's happening, we forget to also note that none of this is normal. None of this is within the boundaries of normal conduct of states. Assassinating the leaders of a country is not usually how countries deal with one another. And yet Israel is dealing with Iran, a country of 93 million people, as it has been dealing with non-state actors, with groups like Hezbollah, like Hamas, like the Houthi in Yemen, because it is framing the conflict. It is framing this war that it initiated as a conflict with a so-called terrorist group. This framing is very important politically for Israel and psychologically in order to continue rallying support amongst the Israeli public and perhaps US, even in the United States, where a lot of people are asking very serious questions about the US involvement, why it got involved, and what is the end game, because that surely isn't clear. You can keep killing people, but then what?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? When will this end? If Iran is bent on replacing whatever leader dies or is assassinated with a new leader, when does it end? Prime Minister Netanyahu is calling the killing of the former Supreme Leader, Ali Khamenei, and the strike on the Assembly of Experts the beginning of the new Middle East. I mean, does the Israeli public buy this as a decisive victory?
Again, we are talking about
well, the Israeli Prime Minister has actually announced the beginning of a new Middle East quite a few times in the past 2.5 years. I remember clearly when the ceasefire agreement with Hezbollah was announced in November of 2024, he said those exact words. Now, in Israel, there is still very much a lot of support for confronting Iran, for taking out what has been framed for decades as an existential threat. But we have to also remember and remind our viewers, this is very personal for Netanyahu. He has literally spent the past 40 years begging, calling, lobbying for regime change in Tehran, and now he has it, and that's exactly what his message has been to the Israeli public. We can do it, now is the time, so give me the support to make sure it is done once and for all.
To go after us.
That is Beirut, the capital of Lebanon, where there's been a series of strikes there. Israel says it's targeting Hezbollah infrastructure. Beirut's southern suburbs are being hit. We understand there's a threat of an imminent Israeli strike. Zaina Honor is there, as she has been for quite some time, covering these huge plumes of smoke that have been arising over the city over the course of the morning. Zaina, bring us up to speed. What are you gleaning from the nature of these attacks from Israel?
Those who are accusing the resistance now in Lebanon that
where we're expecting another Israeli strike in the next few minutes to target a neighborhood in Beirut's southern suburbs. The buildings behind me. In the past 3 hours, there has been 3 strikes. They came with warning, but earlier overnight there were a few strikes that targeted areas outside Hezbollah's traditional strongholds in suburbs of Beirut where Hezbollah does not have influence. So we are seeing this conflict escalate. The latest confrontation between Israel and Hezbollah escalating, with Israel broadening and expanding the scope of its attacks. Israeli military officials saying they are going to make Hezbollah pay a heavy price for firing rockets across the border in the early hours of Monday in support of Iran and in retaliation for the killing of the Iranian supreme leader. The Israeli military saying they want to deal a severe blow to Hezbollah. It's the same rhetoric that we heard in late 2024, and they launched a wide-scale aerial campaign against Hezbollah. The group is weakened, but it is still able to fire rockets, missiles, and launch armed drones across the border. And that is what it has been doing since over the past 24 hours. So far, they have not caused any casualties across the border, but this is Hezbollah remaining defiant. Basically, the Lebanon front is open.
Zaina, I wonder if you can clarify something for our viewers. I mean, you talked about anticipating an Israeli strike. How do we know that that is going to happen? Is it announced by the Israeli military? How are we aware of that information, just to clarify?
What would be done in this regard? Is there any sort of legal
well, the Israeli army spokesperson posts a map on X, basically showing which building they intend to target. It just happened right now. I heard the explosion. So people know which building is going to be hit. Following that post, we hear a lot of gunfire. People inside the Beirut southern suburbs warning residents to leave the area. But many people have already left Beirut southern suburbs, where hundreds of thousands of people live. Aviv. It's a densely populated area. They live and they work there. But there are many other strikes that come without prior warning, and that's what happened overnight. A floor in a hotel in the Hazmi suburbs was hit, a mere 700 meters from the presidential palace, which really is an indication that there is no front line in this conflict. I'm also getting reports that there are strikes in the east of the country, in the Bekaa, and really over the past 48 hours, numerous strikes across southern Lebanon. So this is only an escalating conflict, and there is no diplomatic or mediation offer on the table for the time being.
Everything you're telling us, Zaina, is playing out on our screens at the moment. Huge plumes of smoke have been rising across the city. It's, I guess,
we can see it.
Yeah, we can see it very, very clearly. It is the. There we go.
Or maybe the head of the republic.
Yes, the fourth strike to hit Beirut's southern suburbs in the past 3 hours since 5 GMT. Repeated evacuation orders. So even if people dare to return to their homes, because you remember in the early hours of Monday morning, we saw thousands and thousands of families pack whatever they could and leave the area. Some have since returned because they just don't want to sleep in their cars or in the streets. These recurring evacuation orders make it very, very difficult for people to return to their homes. This is really part of a strategy to ensure that this displacement crisis continues. It's a form of pressure not only on Hezbollah, its supporters, but also on the Lebanese state.
Yeah, part of a strategy, but also part of, I guess, the fabric of daily life there now for people in Beirut, a city that has been scarred by conflict in recent years, more recently by wave after wave of Israeli attacks over the past couple of years or so, that many had hoped will be drawing to a close with the reining in of Hezbollah by Israel and moves by the Lebanese government to disarm the group. But now, in the wake of the Israeli and American assault on Iran, an upsurge in violence once more. Zaina, you talked about some strikes being announced, some strikes not being announced. Presumably, and correct me if I'm wrong, those that are not announced are designed to hit people of interest, commanders within Hezbollah, and those that are announced hit infrastructure. What is the strategy that you're picking out here?
And we are refusing it. That's why the resistance.
Well, yes, there has been a pattern. It's since late 2024. When a strike comes without warning, it's usually a targeted assassination. But I think it's very important to point out that even if this is a targeted assassination, usually other people are killed. And even if we saw this on numerous occasions, at times families are killed because the Israeli military wants to target a certain individual in a building. So we talked about how this country has been coping. People have still not recovered from the last major confrontation. Yes, there was a ceasefire. It was never respected by Israel. It's one-sided, near-daily attacks. Most of the attacks maybe were in the south of the country. But there have been attacks along highways. You're driving your vehicle and you don't know if the car in front of you is just going to blow up. Israeli drones constantly in the skies. So people haven't been able really to move on. And we have to remember, we talk about the new displacement crisis, but tens of thousands of people have not returned to their homes since late 2024. Villages, dozens of villages leveled to the ground, people unable to rebuild their homes. So this is an ongoing crisis, and there's really a lot of concern here on where is this heading. Because clearly, if we're looking at the trajectory, it is showing escalation. But how far? Israeli military officials are saying they are ready and they plan to target Hezbollah across the country.
Zaina, many thanks for your unflinching reporting there from Beirut. That is the view from the Lebanese capital. Many strikes have been happening across the city over the course of the morning, and not in areas limited to areas that are traditionally linked to Hezbollah. We're talking of multiple neighborhoods around the capital as well. We'll keep, and obviously, a keen eye on what's going on there in Beirut, the Western theatre of war at the moment. Now, Iraq, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps says it's launched a series of drone attacks on targeting a U.S. military base in Erbil. The IRGC says it was part of what it described as 3 simultaneous operations, including strikes on 2 U.S. military bases in Kuwait. Mahmoud Abdelwahed joins us live from Baghdad. Mahmoud, clearly a significant attempt to disrupt the operations of American troops and their presence within that part of Iraq. Drone strikes on U.S. installations reported. Do we have a sense of their impact and their implications?
During the last 16 months, didn't prevent...
Well, Neve, definitely these attacks targeting U.S. bases by Iran-aligned armed groups put pressure on U.S. military individuals, U.S. military operating inside Iraq, and also reiterates the demands, the requests of these armed groups for the United States and coalition forces to withdraw their forces from Iraq. This has been always controversial, as you know, that there is a deep division between politicians here and the armed groups. Politicians who want Iraq not to be a ground to settle scores, not to be a launchpad to attack any neighboring country, but at the same time, you have these armed groups attacking U.S. military facilities. As you heard also that the United States State Department has issued a statement warning against traveling to Iraq, and the U.S. Embassy in Iraq has asked its citizens, all U.S. citizens, to leave Iraq immediately. These attacks also has resulted in the halt of aviation in Baghdad International Airport, and also the halt of oil production, especially in northern Iraq in the semi-autonomous Kurdish region. At the same time, you know that there is some sense of embarrassment for the Iraqi government, because the Iraqi government that's keen to maintain a balanced relation between Iran and the United States is now in an embarrassing situation, because these attacks also expose its limits of reigning on these armed groups. As you know that they have been vowing, these groups have been vowing to attack all U.S. and Israeli interests and military facilities in the region in retaliation for the attack on Iran.
Points of weakness of
that was Mahmoud Abdelwahed in Baghdad. We're taking you back to these live pictures from the Lebanese capital. As you can see, pictures speak for themselves, really. More examples of Israeli attacks on various different locations across the city. Some of those attacks come pre-announced, often announced on social media. Some of them are not announced. The tendency is when they're not announced, they're targeted assassinations. When they are announced, they tend to be targeting infrastructure linked to Hezbollah. All of this happening, the Israelis say, in response to rocket fire by Hezbollah into northern Israel, into the port city of Haifa in recent days. The attempt now, of course, by Israel is to completely disarm, destroy whatever vestiges of Hezbollah remain within Beirut. At the same time, I think it's important to add, simultaneously, you've seen Israeli forces move from northern Israel into southern Lebanon. The Israelis claiming that that is a buffer zone that needs to be in place to protect Israel from any potential attack by Hezbollah. Just to repeat, these are the latest pictures from Beirut. More examples of Israeli strikes there in the Lebanese capital.
With continuous wars, that now is the time, really.
Okay, well, I'm joined in the studio once again by Rasul Sirna to talk all things Iran. We've just been hearing from Mahmoud Abdelwahed in Baghdad talking about Iranian strikes on U.S. installations in Iraq. There is a concern at the moment, isn't there, from what you are hearing, that this is turning into more than an aerial war, that there are examples of the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, potentially entering into some kind of ground war as well?
Indeed. So far, what we have seen is just mostly the engagement through the air, whether it's missiles or drones or the aircrafts. But now, so the IRGC in that is ground forces have been engaging in the war, and they have conducted several operations, particularly along the Iran-Iraq border. So this border is important because it's where the Kurdish militants or base are located. And since decades, by the way, we have seen armed clashes again and again, ongoing armed clashes. And it's not only one single Kurdish militant group. We are talking about 5 different structures over there. Some of them are linked to the PKK. Some of them are being supported by international forces, such as the USA, Israel. Some of them are being supported by regional countries due to several reasons. But at the end of the day, they have been having a desire of separation at the end of the day, having their own states separated from Iran. This is one thing that Iranians are regarding as a top security threat to its national territorial integrity. And so they're concerned that the USA initially and Israel also are going to try to destabilize Iranian borders and encourage the insurgence of the ethnic and religious minorities in Iran, somehow arming them, encouraging them in terms of the political mobilization, in terms of the armed mobilization and so on. And that could create a prolonged civil war. Why there is a potential now? Because we're seeing the pattern that the USA and Israelis are particularly trying to reduce Iran's air forces, air defense systems, aircrafts, military airports, radar systems, and missiles and so on. So once a country doesn't have an effective air force, it's extremely difficult to really suppress the internal insurgency.
Yeah, just to clarify, the Americans and the Israelis indeed have talked about there being no ground war, but nevertheless, potentially this is being done
through the proxy. Right. It could be through some of the armed groups, and so. But the worst case scenario, even the worst scenario, is for Iranians is that it's not going to stop with the Kurds.
To Iran and of course, its retaliation against the U.S.-Israeli aggression, we know that before the war, the Americans and the Israelis have been trying to up their game when it comes to defenses, because they saw that in the 12-day war, despite the fact that they dealt a heavy blow or perhaps targeted very significant areas in Iran, still Iran was able to surpass the defenses, but at that point maybe perhaps needed a large amount of rockets and drones to be able to divert or to exhaust the defenses. But now you had, for example, concerning THAAD, before the war, there was, of course, they stationed very significant THAAD systems in Israel and the United Arab Emirates, but just before the war, also situated another one in Jordan. And when Iran targeted the UAE and Jordan basically undermining those defenses, what does that tell you about the fact that of course, we're targeting not only the U.S. bases, but also the fact that the defenses for the Israeli regime do not start in the Israeli regime. They begin in those Arab states.
Well, it was no secret that the Americans and the Israelis have posts and certain facilities for intelligence gathering, for command and control on those Gulf states. That's why I don't think that up to now, as we are reading in certain U.S. mainstream newspapers like Wall Street Journal, we read hours ago that it turned out that the 3 F-15s that were downed above Kuwait, it was a mistake made by a Kuwaiti fighter jet, an FA-18 Kuwaiti jet. So it proves that it's not about having posts and intelligence and command centers on those lands of the Gulf states. It proves that even some of them are using their own air force to commit aggression on Iran. And this is a dangerous precedent because it proves that Trump, as he was talking to the media yesterday, he didn't have a misinformation spelling it. It was actually a slip by him, a tongue slip, when he said that they are fighting with us. So this is dangerous because it jeopardizes the security of the people in those Persian Gulf Arab states, and it proves that the heads of those states they have no idea what they have been doing because it's dangerous for them. Their people, I think that the majority of the population in those countries do not accept to be on the Israeli and the American side against Iran. This is a fact, actually. So, of course, the Emiratis now, they are confessing now that certain posts that have Americans and Israelis who have been evacuated from the Israeli embassy in Abu Dhabi, they have been under attack. And this means that Iran is successful in reaching those Americans and the Israelis on those lands, because take a look to the way they are fighting Iran. They are doing it with a high tension atmosphere. They are trying to tell the international public as well as the U.S. public that they are making huge accomplishments in Iran. Take a look to what Bradley Cooper, the head of the terrorist CENTCOM, who was bragging about the sinking of the Iranian Navy ships. It's like he's putting it as if that there is no chance for the Iranian Navy to operate anymore because they lost their ships. Where at the same time, I was able to recall 2 years ago, he himself, Bradley Cooper, he was complaining to the CBS reporter in her show 60 Minutes. We're able to use we're the first in the entire world to use the anti-ships ballistic missiles. He claimed that they gained it from the Iranians. So he was expressing openly and confessing that Iran possesses military Navy ships. They are capable of reaching them. Of course, we know that Abraham Lincoln, the aircraft carrier, placed in the Indian Ocean because they fear it might be attacked by the Iranian Navy.
Hours maybe of the first day of the war, that you do have information that U.S. troops were evacuated to one of the hotels in Qatar as well at Doha, I think you said, and you also have noticed that there were also a building that was struck in Abu Dhabi. Then later on, Iran had declared that this is a secret headquarters for Mossad. I mean, is Iran when it comes to?
Of course, the Iranian intelligence have been successful in telegraphing the information, the necessary information about how the Americans are hiding the soldiers and the intelligence officers. Yesterday, we knew that the Americans, of course, the U.S. mainstream media, uncovered that the Iranians were successful in attacking a CIA safe house in Riyadh. So it was a success for Iran by sending their drones to attack this CIA safe house. Of course, also you got the information about the killed U.S. soldiers in Kuwait. It turned out that they have been positioned into a place where they were operating, doing their job and the aggression on Iran using civilian infrastructure. It was a civilian port in Kuwait, but the Iranian intelligence were able and capable of reaching those soldiers and attacking them. The same thing goes to Dubai. In Dubai, it was known that the Iranians were successful in attacking using drones a building, a civilian building that had Israeli and American soldiers in it. So when the Americans, they are telling their media, I read this in New York Times, that there are 50,000 troops fighting this fight against Iran in the region. This means that those thousands and tens of thousands of US soldiers, they are using the Persian Gulf Arab countries to conduct the aggression against Iran. There are no other places. They are not positioned in Afghanistan. They are not positioned in Azerbaijan, as well as Iraq. We have, of course, they have small number of troops in Iraq, but the majority is in Persian Gulf Arab states. And this means that the heads and the governments of those states, they have no right to go complain about that Iran has attacked their sovereignty and their safety, and they had nothing to do with this. No, they are with the Americans since the very beginning of this war of aggression against Iran.
Well, there's a statement out for the Qatari Foreign Ministry saying that there were certain calls that he made with a counterpart, but also said that they stress that for the need to stop all or the escalation in the entire region and to go back to the negotiation table. We heard from the Iranian foreign minister saying that it is almost impossible for that the U.S. has actually blown up the table of negotiations. And we have other advisors to Sayyid Ali Khamenei, who said that we cannot go back to any negotiations with the United States that has actually deceived us, and of course what turned over all nations, and we are ready to fight this as long as needed. First of all, on the issue of the Arab states, their own rule, but at the same time, do you think that this would change the nature of the ties between those Arab states and the U.S.?
Well, the logic says here that after this war, those heads of the Persian Gulf Arab states have to take a decision to abandon their demands that the Americans remain on their lands to protect them. They seek protection. Of course, this is the rule here. Those fragile regimes and ruling families in the Persian Gulf Arab states, they will still need a protection, because the protection is from the people. This is the number one threat perception according to them. So they cannot substitute the United States with any other protector. This is their problem. And I think that those countries, those regimes, they would try to tell the Americans that we have no choice but to remain with you, and you remain on our lands. Maybe they are going to reshape the way the Americans are positioned on their lands, but the main concept is going to remain the same. I think that the only good thing to happen for the people of the region is to live in harmony. And the only way to live in harmony is that the American troops leave the region, because those Americans, they came here not to protect those ruling families in the Gulf states. They came here to project their power and hegemony over the sovereignty of the states of the region. So if you take a look to the speech of the Iranian diplomacy since years, since the 1979 revolution, they have been saying openly, talking with their neighbors on the other bank of the Persian Gulf, and asking them to step aside from the Americans and those hegemons who only believe in their own interests, and asking them to shape an order that would safeguard the interests of the people of the region. But unfortunately, those Persian Gulf Arab states and their governments and ruling families, they believe they are fragile every time there is a chance for an uprising on their soils. That's why they want the Americans to protect them. They want the Americans to guarantee their rule, their eternal rule in their capital.
Do you feel that the negotiations have reached a point of no return? I mean, the Qatari foreign ministry seems to be talking about going back to negotiations. I mean, how plausible is that after everything, after the assassination of Sayyid Ali Khamenei, and the fact that they, of course, the Iranians have said, we know the intentions of the U.S., but
the Persian Gulf Arab states, I completely understand why they want Iran and the United States to go back into negotiation table. They don't want this nightmare to end soon, because their cities are being now under attack because of the Americans, because the Americans didn't take into consideration the interests of and the safety of those capitals. But of course, what those governments can do is to talk with the Americans, because the one that has to be talked with here is the Americans, because they took the decision to conduct an aggression on Iran from their lands. So the sane and the right thing to do by those governments is to talk with the Americans on a daily basis and ask them to stop their aggression, because I don't think that the ceasefire is going to happen unless it's in Iran's terms, because Iran stated it before the aggression took place. It's true that you can choose the right time that suits you to conduct the aggression against us, but we are the ones who are going to decide when it would end. So Iran here is the one that is defending its sovereignty and independence, and the Americans are the ones who are going to step back and declare they want to stop. Of course, they would do this after they feel the pain, and they are now feeling the pain. Take a look to their economy and all the numbers that predict that America is heading into a new wave of inflation, as well as Europe, of course.
Yeah.
So this is something breaking, and I think that many factors are going to intersect here to put pressure on the Donald Trump administration to force them to stop this aggression on Iran.
Well, Trump has been quite contradictory in various statements. I mean, first saying this war can go on for 3-4 days. He said Iran is weakened, Iran is defeated. And now he's also talking about the fact that no, this could last longer, that there could even be assistance from more countries, which up until now, of course, they're not taking a full stance. I mean, Macron, the French president, has said, I cannot accept the military activities of the U.S. and Israel, but at the same time sending out more logistic support to the Middle East, as he said, and saying that he's in solidarity with the states of the region that are being targeted by Iran and so on. Iran's foreign minister has said that Trump has betrayed not only the negotiations, but also the people who elected him. And so when it comes to the side of the U.S. And its allies, do you see that the Americans will also be dragging the Europeans with them? And how long can he take this, with the fact that you are saying they are feeling the pain, but the people of America are also quite opposing of this war in general, even those, especially those actually, who elected him, the MAGA, for example, they had hoped, or they were promised, that they would stop all wars.
First of all, as for the Europeans, history tells us, the modern history tells us that the Europeans have always been with the Americans, behind the Americans, in the so-called coalitions to regime change. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised that the French or the Germans or the British or any other European states, they are officially in this aggression on Iran. Of course, the 12 days, during the 12 days war, the Germans, we have information that the Germans, the British, the French, the Italians, they have been providing fuel tankers to aircraft fuel tankers for the Israeli and U.S. Jets that have been conducting aggression on Iran. So, of course, on with regards to the logistical and intelligence and other aspects of war, the Europeans are in this with the Americans. And of course, it's not about whether the Americans can succeed in dragging the Europeans into this conflict. No, actually, we have the Ukraine war. This is the American war against Russia.
But the Europeans were ready to sacrifice their own interests.
Of course, and now the Americans, it turns out the Americans are using the Europeans against the Russians. So they are using the Europeans. And now they can use the Europeans again in their war against Iran. So I don't expect anything. I don't expect anything that expresses independence. They have been always behind the Americans. As for Donald Trump, of course, he came back to the White House. He was elected for the second time based on the promise that he is going to end the endless wars, and especially in the Middle East. So it turned out that the first thing that the Trump administration has done is to wage his second war against Iran, because the first war took place last June. So Donald Trump believes that he, no matter what the base, the MAGA base that elected him into office believes, or what I used to promise them, his own interests with Benjamin Netanyahu and the deep state is more important. We know that Donald Trump has been trying to create excuses, to try to talk with the MAGA base and all the isolationist sector here who have been attacking Donald Trump for waging this war of decision, because everyone now in the United States is telling the truth that threat against the U.S. soil or any interests, because the ones who have been threatening the interests and the safety and the sovereignty of Iran is the United States government. So Iran here is on the defense side. Iran has not been threatening in advance. Iran, I think, is defending, of course, its sovereign and independent right to enrich uranium on their lands. This was stated in the NPT treaty. So the Americans are the ones who came to wage this war of aggression. And I think that this unpopular war in the United States would push many blocs, whether in the political elite, in the Congress, or in the forthcoming disaster. Of course, there's going to be an economic disaster hitting the Americans. This is an elections year. It's soon the Americans are going to vote in the midterms. So Donald Trump doesn't have the merit to prolong this war, because it's going to be a war of attrition that's going to hurt his party in the elections, as well as the economy, the U.S. economy, because up till now, the stock markets, we are witnessing a huge bleeding now in the stock markets, as well as the spike in the oil prices. The gas now is what concerns American consumers now, because now they have to pay more for the gallon of gas.
Well, didn't Trump promise them that now they have the oil from Venezuela, that they can use that as an alternative?
Well, obviously, maybe I believe this, that Donald Trump lacks the minimum basics of political knowledge, to the fact that maybe he thought that as we were successful in Venezuela, we would be able to be successful in Iran. So this is the equation. Maybe I'd rather say it's possible that Donald Trump was told that you can have a swift operation in Iran the same way you had in Venezuela. That's why he was enthusiastic during the first hours of the aggression, and he had, of course, high expectations, and especially when he talks about martyr Ayatollah Khamenei.
Yeah.
When he talked, he was surprised that he knew there was a threat and his home. So of course Donald Trump he cannot understand why Ayatollah Khamenei did this, because there's a cultural dimension here that Donald Trump lacks and has no idea about it, and he would not understand it even if someone came to him to explain. So I think that up till now, Donald Trump, the way he's talking about his achievements regarding this war, and especially when he talks about the obliteration of the Iranian Navy, the Air Force. We all know that Iran has old fighter jets from the Shah era. They don't have aircrafts, developed aircrafts. So when Trump brags about obliterating the Iranian Air Force, we know that he is trying to, make a big achievement to sell to the American people. This might be a sign that soon he's going to step back and decide to stop the war, because there are many setbacks for the Americans regarding this war. They had high expectations, and they are meeting low expectations now, as they are using their artillery, and they have a problem with the artillery and the ammunitions, yes, against Iran. Ammunitions, yes, against Iran.
Well, to give our viewers the latest, the Israeli occupation forces are calling for the full evacuation and trying to empty out all of the south of the Litani. They're saying they're calling on people to move immediately away from all the areas of the south of Litani. That's quite a large, portion of the south of Lebanon. But we also know that Hezbollah has launched another round of operations, especially drones, towards the Galilee, and sirens are sounding in various areas in the north of the Galilee region as they have detected the launching of drones from Lebanon. What do you think it means that the Israeli occupation forces are calling for emptying out completely the south of the Litani area? Does this mean they are preparing for the ground invasion in one way, or to perhaps realize, as they had always planned, to create this buffer zone that they could not realize during the 66-day war?
Well, it's obvious now. The intentions of the Israelis are obvious. They really want to occupy this region. They call it the security zone or the buffer zone. But I believe, and many others believe, as I do, that they have expansionist intentions regarding Lebanon and Syria and other trying to fulfill their dream, their biblical dream. And I think that the fighters of the resistance, they are there waiting for them, and it's going to be an apocalyptic battle, a ground battle. They are going to suffer. The Israelis are going to suffer in those villages, because we cannot accept the fact that the Israelis would succeed. It's not going to be a fact, actually. They are not going to succeed. The resistance fighters, they have been preparing for this moment, and I think that no matter what, the Israelis have issued of warnings regarding the evacuation of this area. Those who are going to fight, as well as many families, many southern families who remained in their homes and refused to leave, they would put the whole Israeli second try to occupy South Lebanon since 2024 into failure, because the Lebanese know now that if they don't face this aggression, this incursion, the sovereignty and the future of Lebanon is going to be something that is not certain. So that's why we have no choice but to fight.
All right, well, we have, of course, several developments also when it comes to the Israeli aggression on Lebanon. Like you had mentioned earlier, they seem to be launching haphazard strikes and shelling all across South Lebanon. We know that there was a strike on the town of Beit Lif, the town of Tarf el-Say as well. And it seems that there are also several areas where the Israelis are near the border. They are also firing live ammunition against anything that is moving in that area. And there's been attacks on several towns in Tirej, Majmi, in Shakra, and of course you have the areas that are even considered in the north of the Litani. They're also being attacked, and that is in addition, of course, to the attacks on the southern suburbs of Beirut and areas that have been deemed safe, like those the areas that are between Beirut and Sidon itself, the targeting of the headquarters of the Jama'a Islamiyah. How do you say that? Are the Israelis punishing this is a branch of the Muslim Brotherhood, and they should be close to Qatar, but they had coordinated with the resistance after during the Gaza genocide to try to support the Gazan people and the Gazan resistance. Is that why they are being targeted by the Israelis now?
Well, anyone who has a doctrine that believes in fighting the Israeli occupation is a target of the Israelis. That's why, of course, the Jama'a Islamiyah they have been attacked. Of course, it's not something new, because during the aggressions, the targeted assassinations that took place during the last 15 months, the Jama'a Islamiyah was attacked several times by the Israelis. There have been many martyrs of its commanders and operatives, and I think that the Israelis are telling us openly that you have no choice but to be united against me. This is the most important message the Israelis are sending to the Lebanese right now, as they are sending the same message with the Americans to the Iranian people. You have to unite against me, because I'm here to kill you. I'm here to eradicate you. The aggression, there is no safe place in Lebanon right now. I don't believe in safe places. Anyone who lives in Lebanon right now, no matter what the religion and the sect was, they are under the threat of being assassinated and killed by the Israelis. And of course, the Israelis right now, they are trying to show their monstrous face to try to put the people into fear, but we are not afraid of the Israelis anymore. The people of South Lebanon, in precise, they said in 1982 that they are not afraid of this occupation.
Yeah.
And we are still not occupied, not afraid by this occupation. And our Christians are saying this. Our Christians are saying the same thing.
Exactly. Thank you, Yading. I always appreciate the insight that you give us. I want to thank you very much for this this portion of the live coverage. Of course, my colleague Farah Hatwi will continue with you in this rolling coverage to give you more on the latest developments and the U.S.-Israeli aggression on Iran and Lebanon and the retaliation of the resistance. Stay with Press TV.
The strongest military in the world, however, can sometimes be struck so hard that it cannot even get back on its feet. That was the response from Iran's leader of the Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Khamenei, to U.S. President Donald Trump and his remarks about American military power and threats against Iran. Now, why is this statement getting so much attention? Because it challenges a long-standing narrative about strength, power, and global influence. Let's rewind for a moment. Back in the 1950s, the United States became involved in Vietnam's Civil War. Despite having advanced weapons and massive resources, American forces faced fierce resistance from North Vietnamese soldiers who were deeply committed to their independence. By the early 1970s, the U.S. withdrew. Fast forward to 2001. The U.S. invaded Afghanistan as part of what it called the War on Terror, aiming to remove the Taliban from power. But after 2 decades of war, the Taliban returned following a chaotic U.S. withdrawal, marking the end of America's longest war. Then came Iraq in 2003. The invasion was launched with major stated objectives, including the elimination of weapons of mass destruction that were never found. Instead of stability, the world left behind an unstable country and the rise of extremist groups. By 2011, the U.S. was once again withdrawing amid growing resistance. That same year, the U.S. and NATO intervened in Libya to oust Muammar Gaddafi, a move that led to long-term instability in the country. Even former U.S. President Barack Obama later described it as the worst mistake of his U.S.-backed Saudi aggression that began in 2015 failed to defeat the Ansarullah resistance movement. Attempts to project military power in the region, including the deployment of aircraft carriers, also failed to stop attacks on Israeli-related ships, eventually leading to withdrawal of U.S. vessels from West Asia. So looking at the sequence of events, a bigger question is being raised. Is retreat, regret, rebuff a fitting title for the narrative of U.S. wars?
Dear viewers, you're joining us in this live coverage, continuous live coverage since day one of the Israeli entity aggression against Lebanon and also against Tehran and against Iran. I'm joined here in the studio with Mr. Hussein Ibrahim. He's a journalist in Al Akhbar newspaper. Hello and welcome, Mr. Hussein. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And we know, of course, the difficulty to reach this area zone, but still you made it to actually analyze and give your own insight towards the latest updates that's happening and occurring in Lebanon. Yesterday, Israel expanded its attacks massively and hit areas that was not even expected. We're speaking about Aramoun, we're speaking today, this morning, also a hotel in Hazmiya area, also in Saydoun also was not even expected. Of course, Aramoun is in Mount Lebanon.
Yes. And Saadiyat.
Yes, exact, Saadiyat. What are they trying to do? Saadiyat and Aramoun in Mount Lebanon. What are they trying to do? These are not Hezbollah households.
I think they want to put more pressure on Lebanon, not on Hezbollah, on Lebanon as a country, in order to make people. Stand against Hezbollah and against. I think this is the goal of the strikes that they done this morning.
Okay, because of course, speaking about Aramoun, speaking about Saadiyat, speaking about Saydoun, these are actually areas, Mr. Ibrahim, that people flee to because they felt it's a safe zone, better than Al-Biqa, for example, better than suburbs of Beirut, better than the south, but still also they were at high risk, an unexpected risk.
Yes, they are trying to make problems for the for the refugees themselves, for the people who fled their towns in the south and in Dahiya, in the suburb of Beirut. They are trying to put them against the other people, the people who usually host them and welcome them. They are trying to say now that you are in danger of if you welcome those people. So, and by putting pressure on the hosting societies, they are going to put the environment of Hezbollah, if the term is accurate, to put them against Hezbollah. They are
so you're saying place pressure on the host.
Yes.
Host will place pressure on the people of the resistance.
Yes.
The people of the resistance will automatically.
Then they will ask them what to do now.
Yes, and the people of the resistance automatically will place more pressure on the resistance as a whole.
But I think this did not succeed in the past and will not succeed this time. I think because people know that what are the choices. You are in front of an occupation. What to do? Then I don't think that it's that easy that the hosting societies will will turn against their own compatriots It's not easy. It's not an easy mission for the Israelis to reach this result.
Okay, so would they be able to achieve the goals I'm saying? Because this is unlike what happened in the previous war on Lebanon by the Israeli entity. They were, for sure, sometimes they were not having, they were not issuing pre-warnings for evacuation orders before hitting. That was obvious. But at the same time, they did not widen the gap in the areas that they are supposed to hit. It's different this time. It's really different. And people are even around the towns, especially around Saydun, around Aramoun, around Al-Hazmiya area are petrified up till this moment. So do you think that they will succeed in placing more pressure on the hosting?
No, I don't think so, because you know, people, after all, the people of the environment of Israel, they have the streets of Beirut and of all the Lebanese you know, regions, and they have the right to go to it. And they are doing so.
Okay. Based on your observation, and now it's obviously very clear to the public, because this is the great dilemma that's occurring now in Lebanon. Why did Hezbollah start this war? They're blaming it all on Hezbollah because they are the ones that launched the 6 rockets, and they are the ones that began the war according to the Lebanese government and some of the Lebanese society. However, based on your observation, Mr. Ibrahim, and coming from the perspective that you're a journalist and in one of the most important newspapers in Lebanon, we're speaking about Al-Akhbar newspaper, do you think that these Israeli strikes, or was Israel actually preparing for this focused and well-equipped war against Hezbollah and did not need any pretext according to what you're seeing now? Because they're speaking about troops at the borders, they're speaking about targets that they want to hit, they know exactly where and when and why, and this is not the act this is not the act of someone who is sudden or who is surprised, taken by surprise.
People are changing course in saying that some people maybe in the beginning, when they were on the streets coming from the south, maybe some people asked themselves why this. But I think now that they became fully aware that this is a big war, and this is you know, Israel is continuing or was continuing its aggression. You know, for like 14 months, more than a year and a half.
15 months, yes.
More than 15 months, and then they were not responding. The resistance was not responding to these aggressions. But now
neither did the government, the Lebanese government.
Of course, the government is not will not respond because it doesn't have the means to respond, and for this reason the resistance is there. You know, if the Lebanese government were to have the means to confront the aggression, then there would be no need for the resistance. But I think people they are thinking now wider, not just who starts it. Israel doesn't need pretext, as you have said.
But you're saying that now it's more clear to the public. But you're saying that now it's more clear to the public, Mr.
It's more clear
Ibrahim,
to
right?
the public, yes.
Cabinet was discussing carrying out, the Israeli cabinet was discussing carrying out a preemptive strike, and that was said by Channel 13. Channel 13, the Israeli Channel 13.
Yes, and we also published it.
Okay.
And the Hezbollah succeeded in
You
thwarting.
published it. It's in from the very first moment.
No,
It's just a few days ago.
No, this very day.
Okay, today
Yes,
it was published.
Yes, it was published.
Based on what information?
And based information from Israel.
Channel 13.
Yes, yes, you know, they said it. The Israelis said it publicly that an attempt to hit Hezbollah targets was thwarted.
Okay.
So
the article speaks about that specifically, and it was very important to place that article in an Akhbar newspaper, Mr.
Of course,
Ibrahim.
and people now became more aware of that. That,
Why did you feel the need of actually posting such an article at this time? Is it because you haven't seen...
you know, as a newspaper,
yes.
as a newspaper, we want to publish the truth.
Okay.
But
the timing was very important.
It's not about timing. The timing was chosen by the Israeli media and the Israelis who, you know, leaked those information to...
Okay, did you actually write more information that we know concerning the preparations of the Israelis to actually commit a preemptive strike against Hezbollah?
It was, I think, the article said that it was well prepared before in a you know cabinet meeting, something like that.
Yes.
And it was well prepared, and they were about to start carrying it out. And it was for
equipped, highly sophisticated weapons were used. Preparations were met, managements were actually occurring. Okay, it was very important to publish that, Mr. Brahim. Do you agree? Because Hezbollah is merely under pressure.
Yes, of course.
Is merely under pressure from a lot, and let's say it as it is, a huge number of people who are criticizing and are not able to understand the perspective from where they came from. So that this article comes to actually...
Yes, it adds to the you know, to the you know events. It adds to how people you know how people see the events.
Okay.
Yes, it makes it more clear.
Okay. And do you think that more people are understanding that this is, or they are blind?
Definitely.
They do read the article, but they do not want to believe it?
Definitely, they are understanding it more.
Okay, justifying the action in a better perspective.
Yes, I know it from my contacts with people.
What are they saying?
They are saying that they
first blame Hezbollah for starting this war, and then
that they have the right to respond. They have the right to respond because 15 months or more they were not responding, waiting for the government to bring something from the Israelis through the negotiations, through the you know, the mediations of the United States, and this yielded nothing.
Okay, at one point, Mr. Brahim, we lost actually this condolences or this empathy towards Hezbollah at one point, and that's why we have seen people a lot blaming
him. I don't think it reached that extent. No,
okay.
I don't
so the
think
support is still continuous.
Yes, of course, because who is Hezbollah? Hezbollah is the people, is part of the people of Lebanon, and they have, you know, their fathers, their children, they are in they are you know, subject to the Israeli aggression.
Okay.
So who are Hezbollahs?
Okay, so therefore here inside Lebanon, domestic TV stations are working against what you are highlighting. They are not stressing on the fact that, according to you, you placed an article today speaking clearly that this was not the initiative made by Hezbollah, it was a preparation, but we have domestic channels in Lebanon who are working 24 hours to demolish this, what you are saying, and do not give it any attention.
Yeah, let me give them the excuse, you know, as you can say, as we can say.
Yes.
You know, in Lebanon you have many points of view for this matter. This is a highly contested, you know, subject in Lebanon. And you know, you have in Lebanon many sects, many you know, many maybe religions, maybe something. You have diversity.
Yes.
In Lebanon, you have diversity, and not all the people see the things the same way. We have to also accept this reality.
Okay.
Then it's normal for people to some people to ask themselves themselves or to ask others why you are doing this and that. But I think ultimately it's up to those who are under the aggression to see or to choose how to act against the aggression, because nobody loves the wars, and nobody loves the evacuation and all this stuff. Nobody likes them. Okay. So why are the people of the South, the other people, are not they asking themselves why are the people of the South enduring all this
for a very long time?
Yes, for a very long time. Is it a hobby or something like that? It's not that the case.
Yes.
They are under they are under aggression, and they are suffering. They were suffering a long time ago from this aggression. Decades ago, many decades ago, they were suffering.
Okay. From your perspective as a journalist, Mr. Hussein, how do you view the way that other journalists, other reporters, other correspondents, other Lebanese local channels are reacting towards the people of the resistance and towards Hezbollah as a whole, when you yourself placed an article highlighting and speaking details and trying to be objective as much as you can, as you have been highlighting, telling the truth for sure, and reflected? You view this?
No, I think as a journalist also, you know that yes. Journalism is not all the time about
reporting,
just reporting and neutral and something like that. So everyone or some people who can accept to be to be both. So maybe they use the language that those who are paying for them want it. In Lebanon,
it's clear now.
Yes, of course, it's clear. It has always been clear. So in Lebanon, you have the media, they are financed by external countries. So everyone speaks for those who finance.
Do you think that we are facing such a scenario more these days? The scenario of reporters or journalists who are reflecting outside agendas and trying not to be objective, as you're highlighting?
This is the case.
Yes.
This is the case. I think the journalists that are not subject to this, they are few.
Okay.
Maybe rare also.
Okay, you are highlighting the truth, and you're saying that's what's happening on the ground, and you've actually highlighted that the cabinet was discussing carrying out a preemptive strike on Hezbollah. However, the Lebanese government and the Prime Minister does not see it that way, and they issued harsh rulings towards Hezbollah.
Yes.
They disagree with what you're saying.
You also, in Lebanon, also you have to let us also be honest. In Lebanon, also you have to differentiate in positions.
Yes.
You be in the state or in the different from being in the resistance. So they must have margin, or it's good for them to have margin, but not to this extent. Not to this extent. Of course, not to this extent. They have to speak to the other countries, to other people. This is okay, but not taking measures like that. Because you may end up with a bigger problem. You may end up with an internal problem. This is worse than the aggression itself. if we reach a situation where we have internal strife, so it's worse than the aggression itself, because you know, when you confront an aggression unified, this is it becomes you know, less you know, effective. Mm-hmm. But if you have an internal strife and above it an aggression, you can envision what the situation will be.
Civil war, of course.
Yes, it's
okay,
something like that.
Why do you think that the Lebanese president and also the Lebanese prime minister took such a decision at this timing specifically? They want to disarm Hezbollah. They want to. They even actually issued very harsh and heavy warnings towards Hezbollah, and even.
I think also themselves they are.
Who are they taking the instructions from, and according to who?
I think they are also under pressure from those who support Israel, from the United States. They are under pressure from the United States. This is clear. Mm-hmm. And from other maybe regional powers.
But they're not courageous enough to actually have a clear understanding of what's happening, and that it's not the right time to actually do that, especially that the Israeli military said on Tuesday that it had deployed thousands of Israeli troops at the borders with Lebanon.
Mm-hmm. I think they must also, of course, they must be, you know, they must look to their people, not to. They must now. They must be occupied by how to, you know, how to host the, you know, the people who fled
exactly.
the
humanitarian crisis. We're facing a humanitarian crisis.
And see how to help the people, how to, you know, feed them, how to.
Provide shelters.
Shelters and provide, you know, health. So it's okay, but don't speak like that at this juncture. It's bad, I think.
Okay, so here, of course, one of the most important matters is that the Israeli military entity, they deployed troops, yes. And we have seen a lot going on last night on the northern, yes. In the south, with the north of Israel, and the military even spokesman, Lieutenant Colonel, he actually said that we have positioned soldiers on the border area and additional points to defend our civilians. This is according to him. Yes. This is not a ground operation. This is a tactical measure to ensure the safety of our people. Yesterday, I had a journalist also, Leila Hatoum. We spoke about this, and she said that, well, they are not. This is not a ground operation for tactical measures, Farah, and unlike it is. Occupation of land, and that's what the real intention is. Do you agree with this, or do you have another say?
No, of course they are. They are already in points or in you know, territories in Lebanon, inside Lebanon. So they are there.
Back and forth. They keep
yes.
on moving back and forth.
Yes, I think if they are not you know, expanding this military you know, incursion, this is because of they're afraid. Their own safety, I think, because, you know, they may be.
That will help them with the ground incursion.
Even though, you know, the land, you know, the land, you know, air campaign also. When people, you know, when there is confrontation on the ground. I think the air campaign, you know, loses some of its effectiveness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Of course, the costs are rising both regionally and globally, especially after Iran officially closed the Strait of Hormuz. And this is a very important topic because yesterday a lot of updates came from Trump concerning the Strait of Hormuz, where 20%.
This is what matters.
Yes, we're 20% of global energy, but we have
supplies.
To speak about what's happening here on the ground before moving to that. Where 20% of global energy supplies passes. Do you think that many countries will end up paying the price for this?
Of course.
And of course, here I would like to take a comment on what Trump said, that he will be escorting the ships that want to break the stage and want to enter through the Strait of Hormuz.
What can they do for them? If you escort a ship, a tanker, an oil tanker, so can you shield it from being
they will retaliate.
thrown? Retaliate? They are retaliating already.
Okay.
They are bombing Iran. So what they will do more?
Okay, so what's behind the statement?
I think it's something nonsense. I think it's nonsense. It doesn't make a big difference.
He's trying to scare the
yes,
the
I
side?
think this is some or
to show the world that he's under control.
Trying to assure the companies, you know, the companies and the countries who who these companies belong to. I think this is the aim of.
How effective do you see this move that was taken by the Iranians?
It's very, very effective. It's very, very effective. I think this becomes now a matter of endurance. Who endures more will win. Yes, will prevail.
Okay, so regionally and globally, how will the other countries react to it? Because they're not only,
you know, they already, you know, if
Persian Gulf countries majorly are paying the price.
If you can notice it, the Chinese position is very, very important. They said that Iran has every right to defend itself. You know, China is one of the most impacted countries of oil disruption, of oil supplies disruption. So if they are in this position and they take this you know, you have to know that that the battle or the war is far from being you know, won as the Americans.
Okay, but kind of there is kind of weakness when you speak about the Egyptians, because the Egyptians are one of the greatest allies to the Iranians, and you are saying that they are the ones majorly affected from closing Strait of Hormuz.
No, the Chinese, I think.
Yes, Chinese. Yeah. So why?
You know, China is the biggest oil consumer in the world.
Okay.
You know.
So how do you evaluate their own interaction towards what's happening, especially the closer the Strait of Hormuz?
When Iran, you know, close the Strait of Hormuz, and China says that Iran have every right to defend itself. You can imagine what China is about. Where China is putting its stakes. So from here you can know that the battle or the war is far from being, you know, far from being, you know, you know, previously you know, known, or its results known. No, I don't think so. I think the one who endures more will prevail.
Okay, so do you expect any escalation from these global powerful regional countries? Very powerful regional countries. Very powerful.
No. You're speaking about the Gulf countries?
Yes.
No, they are not so powerful.
Speaking
you know,
about China here.
About China, is, of course, China is very bad, but I don't think China can intervene in this kind of you know, of war.
Okay.
I think just they make it clear of of this.
Of course, the U.S. says that the Navy will begin escorting tankers
I think
that want to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Does this signal a military escalation? Because this is not a quite innocent move. Don't you agree?
No, because oil is one of the major things impacting this war. If you have a global crisis, if you have very high oil prices, the global economy will slow down. Then people will begin to put pressure on to press the United States and Israel to stop this war. This is something important. Because of that, the Iranians are taking these measures, striking the American interests in the Gulf, and closing the Strait of Hormuz, and striking Israel. How they are.
But for him to say that when it comes to oil supplies and to economy,
he is under pressure. First of all, he's under pressure from his own people, from the American people. They are not happy with going to war against Iran, because they are not being threatened by Iran. So he lied when he said that there was an imminent assault Iran planned against its neighbors and Israel. He lied about that. And he lied when also he said that they are once he said that they are developing enriching uranium, and another time he said that we have destroyed their facilities completely. So he's contradicting himself, and his basis for his legal basis and
analysis.
Yes, his legal basis for going to war with Iran is very, very weak. In the United States, they are if you read the newspapers, the big newspapers like Washington Post, New York Times, they are attacking him. Yes, they are criticizing him.
And to add to what you are saying, Mr. Hussein Ibrahim, of course, the latest news survey says that 27% of the Americans does not want this war.
Of course.
However, most of the Israelis, especially the cabinet, the officials, they are all supportive to the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in this war. However, on the other hand, 27% of the Americans disagree with this involvement, but still he did it.
But I think Trump's biggest dilemma is that in the United States, inside the United States, of being dragged to this war by the the biggest newspapers in America are saying this.
Yeah, and to confirm with what you're highlighting, he used and he responded, and I quote, "I may have forced Israelis' hands."
No.
Why did he feel compelled to say that?
The New York Times published, a full story about how the decision was taken to go to war with Iran. It was taken. They said it was taken during a meeting, the meeting between Netanyahu and the Trump on February the 11th. In the White House.
Yes.
There, Netanyahu pressured him to go to war and to not reaching, a settlement or an agreement with Iran about the nuclear project, nuclear file. So there, the decision was taken by Trump. This was published in the New York Times.
So you don't agree with the scenario of Epstein files and the pressuring Donald Trump, or threatening Donald Trump with Epstein files, and then pressuring him to go into war? But here, of course, him saying, "I may have forced Israelis' hands," answering the reporter.
Yes,
what is he trying to do? But this is a reflection to what you're highlighting?
No, this is a lie. I think this is a lie. He's contradicting
himself. Why is he lying about it?
because he wants to justify why he...
because the internal domestic pressure is intense towards him?
Yes,
so he's trying to defend himself at one point?
And he may, the stakes are very high, because he may lose the incoming elections. He may lose it. The Republicans may lose as a result of this war. We have to wait and see what the result will be.
Okay.
But he may lose the election. It may cost him the elections.
But you don't think that people will believe him when he say these words?
I think because the press is not believing him.
Okay.
The press do not believe him.
Okay, at the beginning of launching this aggressive war, whether towards against Lebanon or even against Iran, Donald Trump said that we will only need from 1 to 2 weeks, and then we will end this war. A few days ago, he highlighted that we need at least 5 weeks.
5 weeks, yes.
To finish this war.
Yes, and they will face a problem also, because they have shortages in in ammunition stockpiles. Especially the Patriot and THAAD and these systems, they have shortages. So if the war drags on, they will face a problem.
They are not ready for that?
I think, yes.
They have been doing preparations, one of the most important preparations, military preparations in history.
Maybe they expected it to be swift, and maybe they thought that if they kill Imam Khamenei,
yes,
Iran will break down and will collapse.
That's what they thought.
Yes.
Okay.
But it turned out to be false, or.
So that's why he had to go and promise more weeks until it's done.
Yes.
Okay. On the other hand, how do you view the Iranian power here, or the way that they are retaliating and the losses that they are causing
until now they are very
the enemy sides?
Yes, until now they are very coherent, and they are using their resources very well, and they have resources. Also, one of the stakes that Trump was putting is an internal appraisal, and this is also turned out to be mistaken. No one in Iran is going to the contrary. People are going to the streets to support the regime, because this is an outside aggression. What Trump has to do with Iran? He's far 10,000 kilometers from Iran. So why coming to war, coming to this region to wage a war against another country, which is not threatening the United States? Because of that, he tried to convince people that there was an imminent, threat from Iran. Because of that, but he did not succeed.
Okay, of course he's using the pretext of existential a threat against him and against Israelis specifically, and
some people say that
pretext against. And he's using it a lot in his own press conference.
Some people in the United States say that part of the decision was based on what he perceives as an Iranian attempt on his life. Some people in the United States say that this is a personal revenge, so.
Personal revenge?
Yes.
Because of what?
Because he accused Iran of making an attempt on his life.
Yes. Okay.
So
he's retaliating for personal issues.
Yes.
Okay.
Some people say that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Persian Gulf countries, and because of course they're majorly outraged because of the Iranian strikes that are hitting basically a U.S. bases inside.
And this is their dilemma, because you cannot tell Iran do not defend yourselves. You cannot. They are under. They are not the one who who.
No war to occur against Iran, and we worked as mediators to cool down the situation and to ban such a war from occurring. So why are we paying the price? That's their own perspective. Paying the price. That's their own perspective.
No, this is not sufficient to say that. And you have American bases on your land which are taking part in this war. You cannot say that we are against the war.
But they believe it's their own. Someone is attacking their own sovereignty. That's what
they say. The Iranian view of this. They are saying this is an American, an American territory on the Gulf.
Yes, Al Udeid is the biggest U.S. air base in the Middle East, and it hosts U.S. and other troops over there.
The Gulf countries are facing.
They don't have the right to criticize. I mean.
No, I think they are facing a problem here because they cannot do anything. They cannot. First of all, they don't have the means.
They're doing intensive meetings to understand
but they don't have
and to come up with a vital action to respond.
No, they cannot respond because if you respond to Iran now, you are giving Iran every reason to take actions, to take reciprocal actions. If you attack Iran, let's say that Saudi Arabia, God forbidden, decide now to attack Iran.
Yes.
So Iran have the right to attack Saudi Arabia, not just the
U.S. bases or U.S. assets.
Okay. So this will become
a regional war.
Yes. Can they endure it?
Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? If they have all the support of the Americans.
Can they bear it? Can they bear it?
Can they bear it?
They cannot.
Yes.
They cannot.
Okay. Of course, here they keep on speaking about Iran, on the other hand, keeps on speaking about that it wants neighborly relations with these countries, and they do not mean any harm, and that they are not targeting these countries as in launching wars against them and specifically, but however they need to retaliate. And it happened to be that these U.S. bases or U.S. assets are distributed among these countries, the Persian Gulf countries. However, the Persian Gulf countries are saying that we are not going to stay silent towards that, and we are going to retaliate. However, Trump, on the other hand, is sitting down, relaxing and watching.
He is inciting them. He's enticing them.
How?
He's saying that yesterday he said that for example, Oman Sultanate,
yes,
did well to Iran, and Iran responded by striking a port in the Sultanate. So this is a clear enticement.
Okay, so what does he want from this? Where would he reach with this?
I don't think the Gulf countries. I think the Gulf countries, they are a little bit, embarrassed in front of their people, because they don't have the means to respond to Iran.
Aren't they aware of this tricky plan made by Trump? Aren't they aware of?
But let's suppose that they are aware. What can they do? They can't do anything because they are American protectorates. So they are under the the security umbrella of the United States. They cannot do anything if the United States doesn't defend the Gulf countries. They cannot defend themselves. It was clear when Saddam invaded Kuwait. It was clear when Yemen bombed Saudi Arabia with missiles, with they cannot defend themselves. They don't have the means. They just have, sophisticated, war machines, but they cannot use it. They cannot, the systems. They don't own the systems. They don't own the skills to use it, to operate it. So they always need the United States. So they always need the United States.
Okay. However, on the other hand, clearly, and some of the analysts over there, they say that this is a war that we are launching on the behalf of even the Persian Gulf countries, because when they are done with the Iranians, they will go to the Gulf countries, to the Persian Gulf countries, the Americans and the Israelis. They will be the next target. So this is a war on the behalf of all the region.
Yes,
we are
moving over here.
And why these countries are not understanding clearly that there is a trap that's being calculated against us
it's not
and
easy.
The region, against the Iranians and the Persian Gulf.
No, it's not easy for countries who are under Western protection, long ago, since their countries were established. So it's not easy to change camps. It's not that easy. You have to know where they are, which family is the United States, support against other families. This is a structure. This is an old structure. They are tribes and something like that. It's not that simple.
Okay, so still you don't believe that they will be moving from defense to offense?
I don't think so.
Because they lack the capability or the courage or the bravery to do that?
Above all, because...
Despite the fact that, let's say it here, there are a lot of talks about it.
But above all, because they fear the Iranian reprisal. They fear the Iranian reprisal because, if you hit Iran now, you give them weapons, and this
yes, but when the Persian
Gulf
countries,
for us in this region, all this is imposed on us. So no one likes wars, and no one wants this.
Okay. When Persian Gulf countries says that Iranians are not allowed to actually hit these U.S. bases or U.S. assets in our country because we view it as breaching our own sovereign state, how do they expect the Iranians to retaliate? What would they do?
Look,
of course, they are launching major and severe and deep strikes on Israelis, but speaking about the American troops, how would they target them?
Look, between themselves,
geographically speaking,
among themselves, they know it, but they can't say it. If you there was on X, Hamad bin Jassim, the ex-prime minister of Qatar. This means that we have to not to depend on the United States, because if you depend on the United States, you have to inherit the adversaries of the United States.
Okay.
So you have to pay the price when the United States go to war with other countries. So he was saying that of course they know it.
But then they can actually.
And because they will not go to war, among other reasons. But this is one reason, because they know it. Because they know it. They know the United States are using their territory.
Not provide the protection if it is needed.
Yes.
They might let go. They won't. The Americans will not support.
No, I don't think so. No. This is because.
But Donald Trump is carefully maintaining this relationship with Saudi Arabia, for example.
Of course, because
would he want anything to shake that?
No, not him. Yeah, I was saying that Hamad bin Jassim. This is an ex-official who is saying the truth.
Reflecting
the truth.
Yes.
But they can do it? I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think they can
have the courage, maybe, to...
No, not just have the courage. It's a matter of their future, of the systems.
Okay.
Of their systems.
U.S. President yesterday also attacked Spain and also attacked the UK for not being cooperative, according to him, regarding these operations that he is taking.
Because they don't see it. They don't see it justified. This is the matter.
Okay.
The Spanish Prime Minister doesn't see that this war against Iran is justified.
He also believes that he was pushed by Netanyahu?
Yes, of course. They all know it. They all know it.
Do you think that more European countries will join this objection?
No, I don't think objection, yes.
And stand against
they
Donald Trump, or
against,
do not provide the enough support that he needs in these operations?
If Britain objected, Britain is the closest ally of the United States in Europe.
Okay.
If Britain objected, then you can also imagine what the others...
But again here, Mr. Hussein, if Donald Trump is winning this war and Israel is providing, or Americans are providing all the necessary help that Israel needs to continue these aggressive military operations against Lebanon or even against the Iranians, why does he need the help of UK and Spain?
Because this is not about.
They seem to the public that they are content at one point.
But this is about logistics. These are about the details of wars. So no, he needs the base of Diego Garcia in the. I think it's in the not in the Pacific, in Indian Ocean. So for logistics, reasons. They need the army, the American army needs those bases to launch attacks.
Okay.
Because of that, it's not about it's just about logistics now here.
Okay.
So, but since they don't want to be involved in this war, those countries, so they will not allow the United States to use those bases.
And how will that reflect on their own position towards Donald Trump?
He was, cursing them. It's like that.
More objections. Will it actually place certain kind of pressure for him to stop this war?
Of course, but
when he is domestically being accused of being the puppet of the Israelis, 27% of the Americans are supportive of this war and the rest are against. Here also a lot of, we're hearing voices coming from the UK, from Spain, from Europe against such a war. Will that place pressure on Donald Trump to finish this war earlier than calculated?
Yes, this is the big stake. Here is the big stake. When let's say the oil prices rise, then people will be even inside the United States. Now they will pay. It will cost them more.
Yes.
From their pocket monies. When they start to pay more, they start to ask, why you went to this war? Why you went to this war? Just to make us pay more. If he wins, then the matter will be finished. But if he doesn't win quickly.
So you're saying economic losses, pressure is what will force these countries to place more pressure on Donald Trump.
Let's say that.
So they are not affected up till now, Mr. Hussein?
Yes, they are affected, but
they will be more effective in the coming days?
Of course. You are just 2 days into it.
Okay.
Just 2 days.
And officially 2 days.
Yes, let's suppose that the Strait of Hormuz stay closed for 2-3 months. What will happen? What will happen? The
ramifications will be wider, of course.
Of course.
Okay.
Then
what will happen?
Then he will be under big pressure to.
Okay, so that's why you're saying that he needs to finish this war as soon as possible.
Yes, of course. He wants to get out of it as soon as possible.
Okay.
Now he wants to make a deal with the Iranians.
He's saying that they want to make a deal with him.
But he wants to make a deal with them.
Okay.
This is the truth.
Okay, and yesterday he compared about the Venezuela case just with the Iranian case. Does he have the right to do that? They're two different scenarios. He spoke about Venezuela and about the accomplishments that he did over there.
No,
with no
it
spilling
turned
of
out to
blood.
be no.
But he was bragging about it and speaking majorly about
but
it.
But it turned to be Iran is very different from in this region is very different from Venezuela and the Western Hemisphere. This very different.
Okay, Donald Trump actually yesterday urged, or he has been doing that for a very long time now, even before this war starts, and now he is implementing and forcing it more and speaking about it. He urged the Iranians to seize the moment and take back their country. He said that this is your time. I've done what I have to do. But now it's your turn to actually do this.
But
do you think that he fails to understand the chemistry or the political structure and the social environment of the Iranians? Because he keeps on comparing between this case and the Venezuelan case.
Of course, he misunderstands the Iranian society, but he merely plays the cards he has. So for that, he knows that the movements on the streets are finished. They are finished now. So it's not easy and will not start again. He knows that. He knows it. But he plays his cards.
Okay, so therefore he failed to understand the structure of the Iranians. That's why he keeps on saying seize the moment and take back their country. If he would have understood the reality on the ground and how firm they are towards their own values and towards what they believe in and the love that they have for their own land, he wouldn't be able to speak that way. Mr. Hussein Ibrahim, you're a journalist in Al Akhbar newspaper, one of the most important newspapers here in Lebanon. Thank you very much for your insight in today's coverage, live coverage. You joined us here in Beirut. Dear viewers, stay tuned. Where we will be back.
The strongest including the deployment of aircraft carriers, also failed to stop attacks on Israeli-related ships, eventually leading to withdrawal of U.S. vessels from West Asia. So looking at the sequence of events, a bigger question is being raised. Is retreat, regret, rebuff a fitting title for the narrative of U.S. wars?
Hello, everyone. This is Press TV and our rolling coverage of the U.S.-Israeli war of choice of aggression of the Islamic Republic of Iran. U.S.-Israeli bombardments have killed hundreds of Iranians, among them 168 elementary school girls murdered in Minab, southern Iran, when their school took a direct hit. On the first day of this aggression, barrages of Iranian missiles continue to rain down on the 1948 occupied territories, also known in Israel, as well as American bases in the region. The Lebanese resistance group Hezbollah has already joined the battle, firing volleys of missiles at Israel-occupied territories. This is a war of aggression that broke out during the U.S.-Iran negotiations. We were told a deal was within reach. That didn't go down well in Tel Aviv. War was now inevitable. U.S. President Donald Trump's facade, which he maintained during his run for president, that of an anti-establishment outsider, was completely stripped away. His campaign promises to end endless wars, forever wars, and challenge the status quo were nothing more than cynical ploys designed to secure votes. As Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said in his latest statements, quote, President Trump betrayed diplomacy and the Americans who voted for him. Among others, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has called out the attack on Iran a breach of international law, if that means anything to the Americans now or to the Israelis. If you wake up today with a chilling sense of deja vu, flashing back to 2003 and the transparent, blatant lies about weapons of mass destruction used to justify an invasion of Iraq, you are not imagining things. The same entrenched forces that propelled the U.S. into West Asia back then are now more entrenched and influential than ever. The neocons, the neoconservative movement, has risen from the ashes. They have simply rebranded the blueprint for unchallenged global dominance, a project that utilizes every ounce of America's destructive military power and wrapped it in the flag of anti-establishment MAGA populism. In lockstep with these neocons, the Israeli regime is effectively wielding the United States and the lives of its soldiers as a blunt instrument. The goal is to shatter the Iranian barrier, the final barrier, with increasing boldness, discussed with increasing boldness within Israeli political circles, and even openly endorsed by U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee, will be set in motion. Let there be no illusion. This aggression extends far beyond Iran's borders. It's a declaration of war against the entire global South, against any nation that dares to exercise genuine sovereignty and refuses to be relegated to the status of a Washington imperial project or any emerging peer competitor, read China, should never be underestimated. It'll not cede its dominance peacefully. The American populace will foot the bill for this catastrophe, both in tax dollars and in their children. Meanwhile, the oligarchic elite will count their windfall profits. The military-industrial complex is salivating at the prospect of another lucrative conflict. And if Iran is devastated and its government topple, U.S. corporations will be first in line for the reconstruction contracts. They will descend like vultures to plunder Iran's natural resources and industries at fire sale prices. And there is more to that the United States, as a declining empire, is lashing out and is prepared to bomb its way back to the top. All right, let's start the conversation, but right before that, the consequence of America and Israel's war of choice against the Islamic Republic is snowballing into a global issue very quickly. From countries outright refusing to let the U.S. use their territories as bases of a watch and wait game, the globe is now holding its collective breath. Joining us for the international perspective on this war is Mohammed Desai. Mohammed is the Executive Director of Africa for Palestine based in Johannesburg. Mohammed, good to speak with you again, although I wish we could meet in much better circumstances. But for starters, bring us the perspective from the continent that you live in. How is this war of aggression going down there?
Also for bringing in the African continent, absolutely devastating government officials, the dominant reaction being one of alarm and condemnation, of course, on the one hand, but also a very familiar sense of, we've seen this movie before, the idea of preemptive strikes, the idea of assassinations, the idea of bringing an entire region into a war because of one's own narrow and selfish interests, the interests of the US and Israel in this case. And so many on the African continent are adopting several approaches, very similar approaches. The one is the principal legal opposition, but for many of us, activists at least, the idea of international law was killed, it was murdered, and it was destroyed during the 2 years of intense